What's going on, guys? And welcome to another edition of The Bare Minimum with myself and Dustin Jones. What's going on, Dustin?
What up? How
On
you
the
doing?
4 Star Chicago Sports Podcast. I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm good,
Thursday?
man. Ready to talk some Bears. It's an exciting time, so it's
Yeah.
you look forward to
Guys,
these conversations.
berate us or debate us, agree with us or hate us, hit that like and subscribe.
Jesus Christ.
All right, Dustin. We
How
actually have
long
some
were you
breaking
practicing
news
that
at
one as a
midnight.
Bear?
At midnight, I know if I did that, it would have been better. At midnight, here, guys, almost at midnight on a Thursday night, we actually have some breaking news, man, from
we
about
actually
half an
have
hour ago.
we actually have breaking news, Bruce, as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, Bruce, where you at? Throw it in the chat. um, yeah, guys, the Jacksonville Jaguars, after pretty much a rigorous process as the Bears had in regards to interviewing coaches, did just land on a guy, Liam Cohen. Dustin, I know you're aware of all the kind of funkiness that's been
The
around
back and forth
this
of this
this
whole
process.
thing.
Yeah, so what initially happened, guys, is Cohen was interviewed for the position. He declined, and
Re-signed. He
yeah,
re-signed with the Bucks too, Brandon. He
well,
signed
I
a
don't.
contract.
Was it pen to paper? I think he had
Yeah,
agreed. Oh,
yeah.
was
No,
it?
he signed a contract to
So committed to
to.
another job. Then the Jaguars, and I'm not exaggerating. They had to be what, an hour? I mean, was it from when we heard
It
that
was a
Cohen
few
had?
hours ago that they fired Trent Baalke. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
announced a few hours
So like a
ago.
few hours after the declining of Cohen, they fired their general manager Trent Baalke, and now we're hearing that Cohen is going to take this job. So it's pretty clear, Dustin, right? What was standing in the way here?
Yeah, yeah. Liam Cohen said, "I'm not gonna fucking work for that guy," and he's like, "Okay, peace." And then they're like, "All right, you don't want to work for him? We'll fire him. We're not that attached to him." And then they're like, "Come on back."
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it's kind of
exactly what
funny.
happened.
Baalke was like, "Yeah, we'll find somebody else." He turned around. His
Mhm.
ownership was like, "Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
find
no,
somebody." Yeah,
and Balky, I think, wanted some different candidates than ownership probably wanted. I mean, Robert Sala was a legitimate candidate for Balky, and I don't think the Jaguars wanted any part of that. They're like, "This is the guy we want. Let's go get him. Let's not let this GM, who's led us to a mediocre performance for the last few years, stand in the way of getting the guy that we need." So they went and
well,
did that.
and there was an earlier report from, I believe, within the last week that said that Ben Johnson himself didn't like the idea of Baalke being the general manager. Right? Didn't we hear that as well? So I mean,
Brandon,
if you're the
Brandon,
Jaguars organization and you're reading that in the news, you've
Brandon,
got a problem.
nobody in the NFL liked the idea of working for Trent Baalke. it's I said it last night when they fired Trent Baalke. Is like it was a smart move. It's just really dumb that it took them so long to realize that it was the smart move. And it took a coach saying, "Listen, you want me? This guy needs to go." It took that happening for them to realize what they needed to do. So I mean, it just shines light on the fact that none of these NFL owners know what the hell they're doing. They really don't, and they need football guys to make these decisions for them. It just shines light on that.
And if you hire the wrong football guy, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and that
As
can
I'm
set you
sure
back
Trent
multiple
Baalke
years.
considers himself to be a football guy, but clearly he's not an educated one. And Dustin, while we're talking about GMs being able to adapt and change and make the right hires, or ownership, I should say, sorry, it kind of leads
And
us into
GMs. Yeah.
what's going on here in Chicago. Do you think that George McCaskey has been handling this operation differently over the last, let's say, I don't know, 3 months?
Yes, 100%. I mean, you saw. I mean, them deciding to fire Matt Eberflus was the first step in really all of these things changing. It looks like it's trending in a direction where George McCaskey is. That was that was a Ryan Poles decision, firing Matt Eberflus midseason. That was not a Chicago Bears decision. The Chicago Bears haven't made that decision in their 106-year history. So, I mean, Ryan Poles said, "I got to get this guy out of here. He's killing my locker room." And George McCaskey just got out of the way and let his football person make that football decision. And then that set the tone for everything that has happened since. And I mean, you heard in George McCaskey's press conference, Ryan said Ben's his guy. I said, okay, go get him. Do what you got to do to go get him. That's what George McCaskey basically said, paraphrasing, obviously, but that suggests to me that McCaskey, it's not just lip service when McCaskey says, you guys got whatever resources you need to go get the guy you need. They're going to pay Ben Johnson handily to do this job. And Ben Johnson was the guy that Ryan Poles wanted. You hire guys, you put them in position to make these decisions. You got to let them make these decisions. And I think we've seen in the past that has not happened with this organization. So it's a glimmer of hope for Bears fans that have been stuck in this mediocrity, man, that it seems like George might be turning this ship in a different direction where he actually lets football people make the decisions for his football team, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's felt different, certainly, and it's like you said, we're going against 100-year-old trends, so you can't really argue that it is different, right? It certainly, most certainly has been.
It's 100% the opposite of whatever it's been in a lot of ways.
And in regards to Ryan Poles being the front runner on this decision and pretty much telling upper management, this is who I want, and them saying, here's what you need to go get it. Shoot, you know what I mean? It's for the first time as a Bears fan in a long time, you can kind of see the vision that Ryan Poles has, like the direction this football team is going, where the last couple of hires, man, when they brought a new head coach, you were just kind of like, what the hell is this going to be? What's it supposed to be? When they hired Matt Eberflus, like, I didn't know what were they trying to do here? What culture, what identity is this Bears team going to have? That I feel like is being kind of defined in the decisions the Bears are making.
Yeah, man. I mean, when the Bears hired Matt Nagy, there was that feeling a little bit. He had come from a winning culture in Kansas City, and he had coached under Andy Reid. There was the question of him being the play caller, which he was not in Kansas City. Ben Johnson is legitimately the play caller from that Detroit Lions offense. That was the number one offense in the NFL. So it's a bit different in that regard, but there was some hope with that Matt Nagy thing. The Eberflus thing made no sense. I 100% made no sense when they made the hire. It made no sense when they decided to keep him. So, like, you talk about Ryan Poles' vision, I just wonder how soon do we forget about the fact that vision included thinking that you could build a winning team with Matt Eberflus. You know what I'm saying?
In regards to the Matt Nagy thing, I want to say this too. I agree with you. There was a point where I was a little excited for Matt Nagy. I didn't know too much about him, but I will say
he was the coach of the year, dude.
But the identity of that team became Vic Fangio. It was the hiring of Vic Fangio that made that team a playoff team.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the identity, that 2018 team with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, the double doink guys. That team was a defensive football team. They took the ball away, and more than that, they scored touchdowns on defense a lot. Eddie Jackson had 4. I remember.
But then Vic Fangio went to Denver and didn't do shit as a head coach.
Oh, Vic Fangio doesn't sense that defense in Chicago. Vic Fangio's career has looked almost not like he's pretty much.
He's had a good year this year. He's had a good year this year as a defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. So, I mean, like that, there's that. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, you just never know how like you just said, Vic Fangio was the identity of that team, probably the defense that he established. He got a job because of it, and it didn't work out. So you see it all the time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And you're
really
correct,
depends
man.
on the guy and the infrastructure around that guy.
And you're correct. I would say that this Eagles team is their defense and run the ball. That's their identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and I mean, you just want your team to have that. The teams that don't have that don't say like, well, this is what we're going to do and we're going to live and die by that, they're just not successful. I mean, you might, again, die by that at some point, but like at least you have some conviction, you have some confidence in the way you want to do things and how you want them done. And generally that tends to produce results in the NFL. And I mean, I think that Ben Johnson has that, based on that.
It's the first time I've ever heard this approach from a coach in regards to balance in between running and passing the football. He said balance is achieved over the course of a season, not in a game. If I have to run 55 times today, so be it. If I have to pass 55,
whatever it takes to win the game. Yeah.
That's I like to hear that, man. I do, because there was a lot of times this season I thought where we depended on Caleb because the run game obviously wasn't working, and there was a lot of times where Caleb just simply failed because the Bears could not run the football.
Well, listen,
So, and
Ben was
we've watched Jared Goff tear a team up for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and we've watched Jameer Gibbs score 3 touchdowns and rush for 150. You know what I mean? So Ben Johnson is clearly aware of
what's
when
up,
when
Purple
it's
Jesus?
important to run and when it's not.
Thanks for joining us. Hit that like button. Ben was asked specifically about it, like what that offense looks like to him. And I mean, he said, I'm to go back to a John Shoot principle, basically, is
Yeah.
we're
Who
gonna
was
make
on the radio? He was on Mully and Haw this morning or
we're gonna make
yesterday.
we're
Sorry.
going to make same things look different, and we're going to make different things look the same. It's about deception. It's about keeping the defense off balance. And that doesn't necessarily, like you said, mean in a game. It means game to game based on what you need to do. But if you're passing it throughout that game, you want them to think about the fact that you could be running it. And I mean, those tenets are they're strong ones, and he has an idea of how he wants to go about this and the way he wants it to look, and you can tell that he has an idea of how he wants to establish culture. He has an extreme amount of confidence. Those are the main things I took away from that press conference is just the uber confidence this guy has in himself and his abilities, and I think that he can make it translate, man, based on what I've seen so far. I mean, you don't win any football games in the offseason during a press conference, but he really handled himself well in that press conference, man. And I liked a lot of the things he was talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he did a great job. I really did. And he still, to me, man, I did say this about his body language prior to the Bears hiring him. This, I will say it, I voiced this as one of my concerns. He still does come off to me as timid, man, almost uncomfortable on the stage. But
I didn't see that at
but
all in this press
I
conference.
can see that he's got some Dan Campbell qualities, man, because he said this. He said, this is not the Lions roster. He said them by name. I don't have Jameer Gibbs. I don't have Amon Ra. I don't have, Jerry Goff. He said it. It's new players. We're going to break it down to the studs, and we're going to figure out how to do it. Do it with the guys we got. But the one thing he did say is, it's still going to be aggressive. I still want a defense on their heels. And that's what I loved about that Lions team, man, is we played them twice this year, Dustin. Did you ever feel, even on like a fourth and fairly long, did you feel safe on defense when the Bears defense was on the field? You know what I mean? Did you
No,
feel
yeah, for
good?
sure.
Like you always felt like, oh man, they're gonna get it again. You know what I mean? Like this
They're up by two
offense, just
touchdowns.
this. I'm
They'll
gonna
run
be
a
honest
trick
with you, man.
play for a 40-yard touchdown.
This is how confident I felt in the Bears. I'm gonna be honest. When fourth downs came up, I was saying in my head, like, please don't go for it, Campbell. Please don't go for it. Please don't go for it. You know what I mean? Because that's just kind of how this Lions team made you feel, and I'd
And that's
imagine it made you.
exactly how you want to make a defense
Eh,
feel if you're an
That's what I'm
offensive
saying.
man.
That's imagine that's how the Bears defense felt as well. The
Yeah.
way I felt, like when they said we're going for four, I'm sure the players on the Bears defense were like, "Fuck," you know what I mean? Thought we stopped them, but yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. So go ahead.
when Ben was talking about that off how this offense is going to look different, it's not going to be the Lions offense. He's not going to just replicate that. The most important thing that he said in that whole thing was, we're going to build it around Caleb. We're gonna get Caleb ready. We're gonna have him as the centerpiece of this, and then the weapons that we add around him, that we will integrate them into the offense. But this is going to be Caleb's offense. Ben Johnson took this job because of Caleb Williams. No doubts. He did not give any pause when asked about that in that press conference. Helps to have a quarterback, he said, right? Caleb Williams is the reason Ben Johnson is in Chicago, and Caleb Williams will be the centerpiece of this offense. And whatever Ben Johnson creates, it's going to be around Caleb Williams. And that's comforting to know as a Bears fan too, if you believe in Caleb Williams, which I do.
Well, and it's a big testament, Dustin, because we've talked about all off season. Like, we really even through the season we talked about majority of our shows for a couple of weeks. Dustin was, should Ryan Poles be the guy looking for the next head coach? And not only did Ryan Poles acquire the piece, like you said, in Caleb Williams, who had a really good rookie year, so it's not just the clout anymore. Like he proved that he can play, right? Or
Yeah.
at least that he's getting used to the speed. Not only did he acquire that piece that enticed Ben Johnson enough to get here, but Ryan Poles, man, completely lost where I was going with this.
It's
But
okay. Ryan Poles has defied expectations with this
oh no, no,
coaching,
yeah. What I was going to say is Ben
right?
Johnson said. Sorry, Ben Johnson said it's the people. So Ryan Poles also had a really big role in why Ben Johnson chose the Bears because we've talked about it before, Dustin. Ben Johnson did have to choose the Bears, right?
Yeah,
There's
and
other
I
options.
mean, going into this whole thing with Ben Johnson, and the biggest concern of Bears fans was, and it was pointed out oftentimes, was that Ben Johnson said he's seeking alignment between GM and coach. And could we find that with Ryan
Yeah,
Poles? Ryan Poles showed him that they could find that alignment and nailed it. And Ben Johnson in the press conference said, you saw guys top to bottom in lockstep. That was comforting as a Bears fan too, because that's the thing we've been questioning the most this entire season is Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. Are they going at it? Do they even like each other? And is George McCaskey meddling and getting in the way? Ben Johnson was the poster child for a head coach that was going to say, if your shit's not together, I'm not coming there. Ben Johnson is a smart dude. Ben Johnson looked at the Bears top brass and said, these guys got their shit together and decided to come here. So, I mean, like, that's the most confidence inspiring thing if you're a Chicago Bears fan is that Ben Johnson chose us and he cited specifically the alignment between management.
that was the question he stayed furthest away from, though.
And no, I mean he came out right at the top of the press conference and said these guys are in lockstep.
No, I know. When I forget who it was asked him about alignment and the fact that I,
no worries,
I don't
Purple
know if it was.
Jesus,
I don't
man.
even know
Thank
if it
you for
was
joining
actually.
me.
What's up,
What up,
Purple Jesus?
Amphiorus?
What's up,
Hit that
Amphiorus?
like button, y'all, man. Thank you for joining us late night. We appreciate it. If y'all got anything you want to talk about, I don't care if it's about the Vikings, Purple Jesus, throw it in the chat. We'll touch on it, my man.
Dude,
Thanks.
when he was asked about alignment, more so the contract of Ryan Poles, he's like, you got to take that to the powers that be. That's what he said. You got
Yeah,
to ask
because he
that
has no
question.
control over
Say that.
that.
Yeah, and he knows that those guys are about to step up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's
And he
gonna come
also
up here in 5 minutes, ask him that question. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and he also knows that he's being set up with that question too. So I mean, like Ben Johnson, at the end of the day, chose the Bears, and a big part of
Bear
that
down, man.
was going to be that he saw that he had confidence in the people above him. So he obviously did. If Ben Johnson's as smart as all of us Bears fans think we are, then we should all feel pretty stupid for saying Ryan Poles looks uncomfortable and sitting next to Kevin Warren. That was stupid from the beginning, I thought. But
I didn't buy much into that, man. I'll
no,
be
neither
honest
did
with
I.
you.
That's my point.
I never
But
said a word about
but
that. Not a
yeah,
word.
and I disputed it on multiple occasions. But all I'm saying is Ben Johnson saw something different, and if he's as smart as all y'all think he is, then you should have some confidence in that. That's what I'm saying, and that's good to know as a Bears fan.
Yeah, he is a very intelligent individual, and he even had enough intuition, Dustin, to understand what it means to coach here. I mean, he laid into that pretty heavy too.
Well, yeah, he's
How
been in the
important it
division
is,
for
how important it is
5
to be the
years.
head coach of the Chicago Bears, this market, this city, how
Mm-hmm.
badly this fan base desires winning football. Man. I
Yeah,
mean,
he got goosebumps walking
starved.
into Hollis Hall, man.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson looked like a guy who fucking wanted to be here. And when you saw him walking into Hollis Hall, that video of in his opening speech to just the Bears, like office there, the front office, was just like, this is where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to be. That's great to hear. When you started this coaching search, there were 2 guys at the top of the list for everybody. It was Mike Vrabel. It was Ben Johnson. I won't go. I'll say it straight up. I wanted Vrabel. It was never a chance from what everybody says. It is what it is. Ben Johnson was the second candidate. If he got away from the Bears in this coaching search, that was going to be a huge failure. But he wanted to be here. So it kind of backs up what I felt from the beginning, which is this should be the most desirable job that's available. And Ben Johnson desired it very much. And that's another thing that's good to know. It's like, maybe we're not thinking about it just as Bears fans. Like, this is a great organization to work for, a great city to work in, and this is a great fan base to get on your side. All you got to do is win some fucking football games, man. Win football games, and this city will love you forever, Ben Johnson. So, I mean, like,
especially if you're doing it on the offensive side of the football, you know what I mean?
And Fiores talks about that right here. I'm just happy to have someone calling plays that doesn't give up on the run as soon as the Bears are down. It's been a long time since they've had that. Ben Johnson does not only does he run the football, and he has a very creative way of doing it, he runs a hell of a lot of play action, which the Bears did very little of, and I hated it all season. So, I mean, the offensive ability that he's going to unlock in Caleb Williams just by utilizing that play action, and again, making same things look different and different things look the same. Just that deception that he can put in the head of a defense, it's going to unlock a lot in Caleb Williams, I think. I'm excited as well, Fiores.
Yeah, obviously the pairing of Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams is the thing to be most excited about. Is the reason I think all the people out there like Kyle and Sean had Ben Johnson at the top of their list. The relationship that he could possibly have with Caleb Williams moving forward, and how that plays out on the football field, guys. Because Ben Johnson did say again, lock and step. I mean, tied at the hip. He said Caleb Williams is going to spend a lot of time with me. And I don't think that he means just on a practice field or just in a film room. I think he's going to be around Caleb a lot, because he said the only thing that makes this work is if the quarterback is thinking with the mind of the play caller. So basically, and you saw this play out a lot, guys. You saw a lot of film where Jared Goff was coached told a specific thing by Dan Campbell. He walked over to Ben Johnson and said, we really think we should. And Ben Johnson, I think all kind of agreed. And Campbell said, you know what, F it, go for it. And it worked out. So you could tell that Jared Goff was literally just an extension of Ben Johnson's brain when he was running that offense, Dustin, in Detroit. And I think that's kind of the relationship he expects to have with Caleb Williams.
And you can't argue the fact that Jared Goff got a lot better working under Ben Johnson
tremendously
than even under Sean McVay, guys. Sean McVay, who was the wonderkin offensive mind in the NFL, the youngest head coach ever hired.
And he still is a great coach.
Mm-hmm. And exactly, he is. But Jared Goff's improvement from going from Los Angeles to Detroit was very noticeable, and that's part of what you're talking about, where he's seeing things through the mind of and the eyes of Ben Johnson and executing it the way Ben Johnson wanted it. Now Caleb is going to have to do that. Caleb likes to play off script. Caleb likes to play out of schedule. Caleb likes to move out of the system early. He did that a lot this season. Ben Johnson's main task as that offensive play caller for Caleb Williams is going to be to get him to work within structure, stay within the system, make the right play, don't make the big play, make the right play. So I mean, like, and that improvement can happen pretty quickly with a guy like Ben Johnson, and there's proof of it in seeing Jared Goff go from Los Angeles to Detroit.
Yeah, and I will say this, man. Sean McVay did.
Chris Foster.
Johnson obviously did more. Sean McVay runs the same kind of. It's the same, you know. I mean, like Stafford is an extension of Sean McVay's mind. You know what I mean? Running that offense. This is the relationship, guys. The Kyle Shanahan's to Brock Purdy's.
There's a difference there, though, Brandon. Stafford. I mean, Stafford was a veteran quarterback when he got there. You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference there in terms of like how Stafford's mind is he's already seen everything in the NFL.
I would make an argument, man, that Jared Goff was a veteran when he got to Detroit, bro.
I mean, to an extent, not the way Stafford was when he got to Los Angeles.
He wasn't a seasoned guy, but he'd been around. He made it to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And sucked.
Yeah, no, to be honest, Dustin, it was looking as if his career was all but over. Like he was going to be a backup, a journeyman for the rest of this league for sure.
So that gives you some confidence in Ben Johnson and his ability to work with Caleb Williams. You know, that's really what it comes down to for me is he took a quarterback that was still pretty young, that still had some stuff to learn and could still get better, and he helped him do that. And I think he's going to apply a lot of those same principles for Caleb Williams and help him do the same thing.
Yeah, and then it begs the question, Dustin, the question everybody's probably asking themselves, whether or not you love or hate Ben Johnson, is how much of the culture shift in Detroit? Because I mean, I'll be honest, when they made that trade, hired Dan Campbell, acquired Jared Goff, like I didn't believe in any of it, and I was wrong. And I'm sure there was a lot of people out there that were, but can Ben Johnson, he talked a lot about culture in this interview. Can Ben Johnson change the culture in this organization?
I mean, here, and when you ask that question, it makes me
Is
think
he,
about.
oh, sorry, Dustin, do you think that he's a culture coach? Start with that. Do you think that he is? Because there are differences between culture coaches and play callers who end up failing.
I I think Ben Johnson has has a very strong idea of what he wants his culture to be. I think he's going to have to surround himself with a very strong staff in order to establish that culture because there's so much ass backwards culture in that locker room from the past couple of seasons. So I mean the coaching staff that he brings in around him is going to be hugely important. But when you asked me that question, Brandon, the first thought that came to my mind was he was asked in his press conference what he saw from what he was able to pick up from Dan Campbell working with him and what Dan Campbell said as an example. And the two things that he said were Dan Campbell is authentically himself. He know who he is when he walks in a room. And he said Dan Campbell hires people he trusts and then he trusts them to just do their jobs. He delegates and he lets them do their jobs. And I think that's a big part of a culture, right? If you're over somebody's shoulder all the time and second guessing them, you're not developing culture. You're not developing a relationship. You're not developing trust. You got to be able to delegate. You got to be able to understand the bigger picture and make sure that you make the right decisions and let those people do their jobs. So, I mean, like, I think if he sticks to those principles that he says he learned from watching Dan Campbell, I think he can. He can. Yes, I think he can. I mean, and that was my biggest thing with Ben Johnson. My biggest hope, when he was being talked about as a candidate, was, I mean, Dan Campbell does it the right way, and at least he's seen that, and hopefully he can take that and bring it. He's going to have his own spin on it. He's going to do it his way. But I think what he's learned watching Dan Campbell is I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to live and die by that. And I mean, that's what you need. That's what you need to establish a culture.
Yeah, and he also said he deliberately
Yeah, I'm furious. I like
spent
that.
more time and attention focusing on managing a game this last season under Dan Campbell than he had prior because he knew he was going to be departing for a head coaching role. So he was focused. He had mentioned he was focused on the things like the timeouts, the challenges, the managing clock, in late game moments. But um, you can tell that one thing I will say, man, that excites the hell out of me is I think Ben Johnson is very much like Caleb Williams. I think he wants to be the best at his craft. I do. I
You
think he
think
wants to be.
Ben Johnson could pull off the black leather trench coat?
No, I don't think Caleb. I don't know. I don't know that I'd say Caleb pulled that off, to be honest, man. But um, I think Ben
Morpheus.
Johnson wants to be the best at his craft. I think he's very focused on getting better every day. At the like when he stuck around right with Detroit, the first time he declined head coaching, he said his emotions got the best of him. That's what he said. That's why what brought him back to Detroit. He
You
didn't
want
want
to
to
run
walk
it
away
back.
losing.
You want to take another crack
Um,
at it. Yeah.
yeah, so he decided to stay there, but he was still aware of the fact that he would be offered head coaching jobs again. So he focused on tasks that a head coach is required to do while he was coaching underneath Dan Campbell for the next season, the last season. That says to me somebody. I mean, that to me defines somebody who wants to be good at something. You know what I mean? It's the
Yeah.
proximity principle. Literally, a book that I'm reading, man. Be next to somebody who does something well, and then it says, Dustin, don't imitate it, make it your own. And that's what Ben Johnson kind of said in his interview, right? This he's gonna it's gonna be what he had in Detroit, but it's gonna look different. He's gonna make this his very own thing, right?
Oh yeah, you would hope so. I mean, and people who are successful, they do that very thing that you just said. I Ben Johnson to me instilled an extreme amount of confidence in Bears fans and this organization in the way that he carried himself throughout he's carried himself throughout this process, the way he carried himself in that press conference, the things that he said, he didn't mince words. He didn't bullshit. He said straight up, we're going to be accountable here. And what accountability, what did he say accountability looks like to him? That was an important part. And I was trying to remember because I liked
he said having an expectation and holding yourself to it every day. That's pretty much what he said.
Yeah, and recognizing when
he said this is going to be our standard, and you're going to have to meet it each and every day you walk in the building. And when you don't, that's when you start to get into discipline.
Yeah,
that's when you start getting and not holding yourself accountable. The people who aren't on the same page.
Recognizing when you fall, right. Recognizing when you fall short of that standard and making the necessary adjustments to fix it. I mean, he even said the word consequences, in terms of like, if you're not hitting those standards, I think he is going to be 100% about his business. I don't think there's going to be any half stepping with this. He wants this team to be successful immediately. He was asked about that too. He wants to be competitive in 2025. And he said also, which I thought was very interesting, that the Chicago Bears were the team he was most afraid of coming into this season in this division, more so than the Packers, more so than the Vikings. The defense has given him trouble. Giant. Yeah, man. So it's like he sees all of the potential and positives with this team, and he also sees he sees that it fell short. So he wants to come in here and figure out why and fix it quickly. And the way he's going to do that is by making sure these people in the locker room hold themselves accountable, hold each other accountable, and that he holds them accountable. I'm extremely intrigued by this, and I really want to see how he starts to implement this. And I mean, he said it himself, it needs to start in the spring. It needs to start immediately.
And you'd imagine, Dustin, like you said, if this guy is intelligent, I mean, this football team is a machine, right? And something's broken on the Bears, and like, yeah, it could be your head gasket or whatever, your piston, whatever the hell it is. It's the head coach, right? That was the thing that needed most repair in this. Is our coach wasn't a coach. He was not a head coach. He was a defensive coordinator at best. I'll give him that. Wasn't a head coach. He wasn't a leader. Ben Johnson was probably aware of the piece that you got to plug in to make this thing work again. It's a good head coach, and he's confident in himself in being the piece that this team needs. So, yeah, I believe that he thinks he can fix it because the biggest problem was the guy who was running it before him. I believe that Ben Johnson stood on the sideline across from Matt Eberflus and thought to himself, "What the hell, man? How could you you've got this team?
You almost had us."
Well, just how do you find a way to continue to fail? You know what I mean? Because we all did. We were all in awe of how Matt Eberflus lost football games. Every week you were like, "Oh my God, I didn't think he could do it worse than last." You know what I mean? Like it was a Hail Mary, then it turned into we just didn't stop the clock with 40 seconds left and a field goal attempt. You know what I mean? And then a blocked field. It was just what the hell, man?
Listen, I love his. I'll keep going to it. I love his confidence. I love the fact that he says in every coaching position that I've had, I've found a way to be the best at that.
He's confident.
I found a way to be the best at that. So why would I not be able to find a way to be the best at this head coaching position? So if I found a way to do it as a quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator and every role I've been in, why would I not be able to do it as a head coach? It's going to take some adjustment. It's going to take some time, and you don't want that confidence to turn into cockiness. I think he's walking a fine line of confidence and being humble.
And I don't think his belief in himself, Dustin, is all inspired from his own beliefs. He said
a lot of external.
There was people. He said there was people in the building in Detroit that were telling him every day, "Hey, man,
you're ready for this.
You're ready." And he said, Mark Brunell was one of them. Was one of the people that said that to him. So
he referenced Spielman. He referenced the players in the locker room.
He had good people in his corner telling him, "Stop wasting time and don't." Just go do it. So if there's people that believe that are working closely to Ben Johnson every day that believe in him, that makes me feel even better.
Amphiorus likes that he runs a lot of outside zone. He knows the O-line struggled blocking it this year, but most of the line is going to be replaced. And then in that vein, Chris Foster jumps in and says he wants Trey Smith, best left guard. trade from 10th to 20th. I mean, there's no way to predict that scenario, but I mean, like, I guess it's possible. Get an extra second, take whoever at 20th. Second, take D lineman. Okay, so you got a pretty good idea of how you want them to approach this. Sign a vet wide receiver to be our third this year. Scott's our fourth. O lineman at 20th. Yeah, I mean, there's so many potential ways that this could go, guys. I mean, there's still, I mean, first and foremost, Ben Johnson needs to hire a staff. And Fiore said earlier he would love to have Dennis Allen be the defensive coordinator. That's what we're hearing, right? The rumors around the league. It's not done. It's not a done deal, and there are a lot of defensive coordinator jobs out there to choose from right now. And Dennis Allen, I think, is going to take his time in this. I would love a Dennis Allen because of the head coaching experience. Ben Johnson is open to it. That's another great thing. He was asked about that. He would love to have guys with experience around him. He would lean on them. So that's that humble versus that overconfidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that he's willing to bring in guys that can help him, that he can lean on. You know what I'm saying? Dennis Allen would be a great addition.
Dennis Allen was a, don't get it twisted. I mean, this is Ben Johnson's staff. So Ryan Poles made his hire. He got Ben Johnson. Now it's Ben Johnson's turn. So when you see a Dennis Allen report, that's somebody Ben Johnson wants. That's a name Ben Johnson has now mentioned to Ryan.
He's already talked to him. It's something
Ben
that
Johnson reached out to Dennis Allen.
Yes.
So Dennis Allen, what I heard today from what's been is Dennis Allen is just weighing his options. I think Dennis Allen would have been announced by now in Chicago if Dennis Allen wasn't looking at other job opportunities. Because guys, I discussed with Dustin on the phone in the text scroll today. The Detroit job is open.
There are multiple jobs open.
That's a job you got to be licking your chops at, guys. That
you don't know who's going to be in Dallas. You don't know who's going to be in Las Vegas. Like, there's still a lot of moving parts to this. I don't want to just go out and say like Dennis Allen is going to be the defensive coordinator. I would love the move. I would support it. I would hope that, and he'll be a top paid defensive coordinator in the NFL. And I think he'll be worth it for what he can bring to this team, not just with his defensive scheme, but with his experience as a head coach. He wasn't very successful as a head coach. Let's just be honest, whether it was in Denver or New Orleans, but he's done it. He's taken the lumps, and he can help a guy like Ben Johnson an awful lot just in terms of weathering certain storms that you're going to go throughout a season. And you can't really quantify how valuable that is.
Well, and Ben Johnson talked a lot about, I think he called, what do you call them, sinkholes? I'm sure Dennis Allen is very aware of sinkholes. I'm sure he's, I'm sure he can tell about help Ben Johnson on how to get ahead of those, because Dennis Allen found things out when it was too late. You know what I mean? The things that Dennis Allen failed that he couldn't fix until after he was fired. It was too late. So I'm sure he can tell Ben Johnson, like, hey, that's something I wish I had gotten ahead of. I might still have a head coaching job.
Invaluable. Chris Foster is very confident that Allen will be here, man. I wish I had your confidence, but I think it's very likely.
I don't know where a friend of mine texted me. I don't know. He didn't cite a source. A friend of mine texted me that he is going to interview with Detroit, which, like I said, guys, that's a pretty persuasive job over there. I mean, this team's been in the NFC Championship in the last 2 years. They were almost there this season. You got to expect guys are going to want to go work for Dan Campbell, especially since Dan Campbell's entire staff just got promotions. You know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of guys are going to want to go. A lot of guys are going to want to go work for Dan Campbell.
That was an interesting thing that I kind of wanted to just touch on a little bit. Like, just odds wise, man, you see two coordinators from the same team get hired in the same coaching cycle. One goes to an inept, can't get out of their own way New York Jets team and Eric Glenn, the defensive coordinator. One goes to an inept, can't get out of their way organization in the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. What are the odds that both of these guys are successful in turning these teams around and finding, stability? Like, the odds of that got to be pretty low, right? Like that both of them.
Yeah, but it all depends on the guy, man.
It depends on what the roster. It depends on a lot of it.
Do you believe that? So if Mike Tomlin was hired to the Jets today, he's gonna fix it, man, because he's the guy. You know what I mean?
Well, they also have a talented roster. They have talent on that roster. It's just about tapping into it.
So if you're
and getting these
that
guys to
guy, man,
play.
if you're that leader, if you're that culture, if you bring that culture, if Aaron Glenn brings culture to that team and Ben Johnson brings culture here, the odds are much higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's just like you see guys. It's just like the quarterback position. One out of every two fails. You know what I'm saying? Like one successful, one's a bust. So it's like
Yeah, because I don't think culture doesn't. Culture to me is, I guess it all depends upon how each person defines culture. Culture to me is not. I mean, he set a standard that everybody needs to hold themselves to, right? Like culture to me also starts to sustain itself. People want to come be the best, work the hardest, and win. You know what I mean? It starts to just take care of it. It's like when you've created a culture, these guys, these coaches last decades because no matter who the players or coaches that are coming in and out of this system, as long as they're in charge, everybody wants to
they're
be a part of
cogs
it.
in the system, and the
Yes.
system
Yeah.
stays
And
the same.
everybody wants to be a part of it. So
Chris Foster asked, do we know the draft picks after the first and 2 seconds? The 2 seconds are the 39th and the 41th. They got the 72nd pick. The 5-6 and the two
we have a
seven.
we have a third, don't we?
That's what I just said. The 72nd pick is a third round pick. Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
so that's our fourth pick in the draft, right?
Yes, but the
Our third.
5, the 6, and the 2 7s have not been determined yet because they got to add compensatory picks. So, like, the exact position is not determined yet. So, I mean, you got the 5, a 6, and 2 7s after that third round pick. The one third
If
rounder,
Ian
number 72.
if Ian Cunningham's hired this year, they get the compensatory picks for
No
next
fourth,
season.
no.
For
They
next
traded
season,
their fourth. They traded their fourth in this draft for
Keenan Allen.
No, they traded the fourth in last year's draft for Keenan Allen. They traded the fourth in this year's draft to trade back up to get Austin Booker this
Oh,
past draft.
that's correct.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they
Um,
do not have a fourth.
yeah, but would those compensatory picks come next season, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, depending on when it happens, you could potentially. I mean, Ian Cunningham is not going to get hired. It doesn't look. I mean, I guess it's possible. There's still
He
some
had a
openings.
second interview
With who?
with Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee hired a GM already, though.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's the Raiders gig is still open from what I know, and the Jaguars gig is now open, but they're going to put an interim guy from within in that role, from what Shad Khan said in his press release. So I don't think Ian Cunningham's going anywhere. I don't think compensatory picks are coming in
That
this.
doesn't make a whole lot of sense, man. What Shad Khan said.
I mean, well, I don't want to get too.
You got to hire a GM, dude. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's an off season. Got to hire a GM.
Yeah, it would be 2 third-round picks, Chris Foster, if he were hired. And one would be in this year's draft, one would be in the next year's draft, correct. But I don't see Ian Cunningham getting hired as a GM in this cycle. I guess it's still a possibility, but I'm not hearing anything on the Las Vegas thing. So, I mean, yeah, Tennessee hired the assistant GM from KC. I'm blanking on his name, but they did make a hire. That was last week. So he's out on that. And honestly, man, it's not the end of the world if Ian Cunningham is still here, because I think he's a good assistant GM, and Ryan Poles is going into the most important offseason in Bears history and in his career. To have his right-hand man here to help him make these decisions will be beneficial to this Bears team, I believe.
Unless it's in the third round.
Well, I mean, listen, the sun shines on a dog's ass, Brandon. We could potentially get the third round right this year. I mean, it's tough to speculate on everything that is going to happen in this offseason. Like I said, man,
Yeah, it was more of a joke, man. I was kind of hoping.
I understand. I'm talking about what everybody else is talking about. Don't take it so personally. What I am more concerned about right now is the coaching staff that this guy puts around him. I want to start seeing those reports come out of who he's hiring. He said in his he wants to get right into that, and you got to kind of feel like a kid in the candy shop when you start putting your coaching staff together, right? This guy's available. This guy's available. We're moving on from Kirby Joseph. We're moving on from Thomas Brown. We're moving on from Morgan. Now, let me get my guys in here. And he's been thinking and dreaming about this for years. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what he does with these decisions. And they're going to be all important ones.
Yeah, he didn't play around there. he said in his press conference about the offensive line. He's like, we're gonna get an offensive line coach in the building. I was like, God, I hope Chris Morgan was watching that. But no, and then you got to wonder,
Exactly,
Is
afterwards.
Ben Johnson? Are there coaches that are currently working for the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Washington guys that he's got to wait for as well? You know what I mean?
Again, you don't know the relationships that Ben Johnson has across the league and who he's eyeing. It's just going to be it's going to be the most important thing that he does this offseason is put together this staff. We saw the pitfalls of putting together the wrong staff just this past season. Matt Eberflus picked the wrong offensive coordinator and thought he had it right, and it bit him in the ass pretty early on and pretty quickly. And I mean, and then it just starts to become this snowball effect that just runs through your whole fucking team, man. So these decisions that Ben Johnson's about to make are going to be the most important ones of his short career as the Bears head coach. I think he's a smart dude. I think we saw that he's genuine, right? In the words that he speaks and the way he presents himself. So I think that he's just what's most important is that he finds people he can trust to do their jobs, to delegate to. Offensive coordinator is going to be a title and show more than anything because Ben Johnson is going to be calling these plays. He gets to do all the fun stuff. He needs an offensive coordinator that's going to install
Well,
the
he
game
said,
plan,
yeah, he
watch a lot
said,
of tape, right? Yeah, do
he
all
said,
the grunt work basically.
set the table. Set the table is
Yep.
that's the and then he made a joke and work long
Work
hours.
late
That's
nights.
late
Work late
nights.
nights. Yep.
Yeah. So, and the offensive coordinator is still a very important person to a head coach who's calling his own plays. But that's the thing, guys, that I'm glad Ben Johnson talked about. That's the thing that my biggest concern, Dustin, is not just that this guy's a rookie head coach. He's a rookie head coach that already has more responsibility than the average head coach. He is going to call plays. So what you're saying right now, hiring people, even maybe former head
Trust.
coaches
Yeah.
that you can trust in big moments, that you're going to need that when you're focused on an offensive game plan, man. Especially when you're focused on an offensive. If Ben Johnson was just taking the position of head coach in this team and had somebody calling plays, I'd probably feel a little more confident in his ability to succeed and his odds, I should say, to succeed. So,
Well, Brandon, we talked so much and it was dismissed often by a lot of people. We talked so much about Matt Eberflus just getting tunnel vision.
me and you treat this with a lot of concern and a lot of priority. This is one of the
Now,
things that we did.
different guys operate at different levels. Andy Reid calls offensive plays and coaches his football team, and he's got a lot of experience doing it. He had to start getting that experience somewhere. He was a first-time head coach, obviously, at one point. Is Ben Johnson capable of doing that?
All these guys do.
It
Kyle
became pretty
Shanahan's,
yeah.
the
It
Matt
became pretty
LaFleur's.
clear. It became pretty clear early on, right away, that Matt Eberflus was not capable of that he was not capable of focusing on calling plays on defense and coaching the football game and coaching the entire team and clock management and all those things.
And
We're going
having
to see
answers to problems that haven't yet
yeah,
arise, right? Because
seeing ahead, being a few plays ahead. We're going to see very early on if Ben Johnson is capable of doing that.
What's
I
funny,
really
man?
believe so.
I believe it was Joe Sheen who was, like I said, was on Molly and Haw. I believe it was Joe Sheen who said, when the game's coming close to ending and it's like a tight
Joe
football game.
Sheen, the Giants GM?
Or no. The guy who's the offensive coordinator that Ben Johnson referred in his presser?
John Shoop.
Shoop was on. Sorry, Shoop was on Moy Hall, but he was saying, when a game's coming close to an end, you're literally thinking like, okay, what if it comes down to 30 seconds left and one timeout? What if it comes down to we get an interception on this next play and get the ball back? And he's saying you're providing yourself
all the
solutions
variables
to these problems before they've occurred. So when it happens, you're not
you're
a
ready.
deer in headlights, and you're not looking at your assistants like
Matt Eberflus was,
and you don't have one guy saying one finger and another guy saying two fingers because you're fucking ahead of it. That's what Ben Johnson I hope that he understands that that's the most important part of that offense that he needs to
100%.
understand.
And it's the most important part of the entire game plan. And Chris Foster says here, right? It's why Dennis Allen is a former head coach and a good coordinator is key. Why Dennis Allen would be key. Let him handle the defense. Ben just does offense. I kind of gotta disagree with you here, man.
Yeah, no,
I need Ben Johnson to have his hands on everything
and all the
because
pockets.
Ben Johnson needs the same way Matt Eberflus needed the offense to be run in a way that complemented the defense he was calling. Ben Johnson is going to need the defense to be run in a way that complements the offensive game plan that he is calling. He needs to have his hands in all of it. You can't just focus on offense as a head coach. You have to focus on situation. You have to focus on the game clock. You have to focus on, like you said, what could happen if I don't get this first down? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many things at play here, and I need Ben Johnson as a Bears fan to show that he can oversee that the defense is being run the way he wants it to be run, and situationally they are prepared. I mean, listen, you see examples of it throughout the NFL, man. Kyle Shanahan has leaned on his defensive coordinators very heavily, and when he's had good ones, he's had success. When he had Robert Saleh, that team found success. When he had DeMeco Ryans, that team found success. But when he's got a Sorensen, it's not the same. And if you're only focused on the offense and you're not holding that defensive coordinator accountable, Steve Wilks calling in the Super Bowl, the play calling in that game by the defensive coordinator that against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, that's what got Steve Wilks fired. But Kyle Shanahan needed to be involved in that when it was happening. That's the point. Like, you have to be aware of it while it's happening, and your defensive coordinator needs to know what you want and what you need out of them in certain situations.
Yeah, and I mean, how many examples, time and time again, Dustin, can we think of something like this where, like did Dan Campbell give this stamp for Jameson Williams throwing a football? Head coaches have to be. It doesn't matter what side of the ball you coach. You have to be aware of. You have to have situational awareness, guys. So if your defensive coordinator comes up to you, and even if your defensive coordinator is a good coach and knows what he's doing, if he walks up to you and says, "Hey, we're going to do this on this play," and you think like that's just not the right moment for that, you have to be able to tell that guy, no, no, we're like, especially on offense, like
Listen, man,
trick plays. Knowing when it's appropriate to do things on offense is really important in the NFL today, guys. You don't let Jameson Williams throw a
it always
football
has been.
against Dan Quinn in the division, or sorry, the conference round of the playoffs.
It was
That's
the divisional round. You were
or
correct.
yeah, sorry, divisional, and that's just not something Ben Johnson should be doing, and he should be. Hopefully, he's learned from that. He should be more aware. But I will say this, man, in regards to what Chris Foster was saying about let Dennis Allen run the defense. Ben Johnson made it very clear in his press conference that he will have oversight on every aspect of this team. He said special teams,
That's what we need. That's what
defense,
we need. Yes.
everything. He said, I will be involved in all of it. So
But at the
he's,
same time, he has to trust the people that he's hired. And which
yeah.
is the point that Chris Foster's making here, too. Like, I would trust Allen or Saleh over Ben to make a play call on defense in that situation because that's their specialty. That's why you hired them. 100%. It needs to be in lockstep with what you're trying to do overall for the game to win it. That has to be first and foremost.
And I think like any successful business or any operation, I should say, you just set up checks and balances, right, Dustin? I mean, there's a process to this. So if Dennis Allen's your defensive coordinator, um, Ben's your head coach, every play that Dennis Allen calls is going to run through a radio that's in Ben Johnson's ear. So it's, you know what I mean? It's not, I'm not saying that Ben Johnson needs to like stand next to Dennis Allen and give him like the gladiator thumbs up or down. He just needs to be aware of what Dennis Allen is doing
Yeah.
the entire game.
Let me use something that we just experienced that tanked our entire season this past year as an example. If Ben Johnson is our head coach and he's an offensive play caller, while the Bears are on defense and the Commanders are about to attempt a Hail Mary, if Tyreek Stevenson is back there bullshitting in the backfield, talking to fans and not paying attention to the play, Ben Johnson should be the one that says, hey, what the fuck are we doing? Call a timeout. Let's get this fixed. You guys are not really. The head coach needs to be able to do that. Matt Eberflus was so consumed with the defensive play call in that moment that he wasn't even aware that his players weren't ready to execute it. That's
a
the
great
general
example.
point. That's the general point. Like, you got to be aware of everything that's going on, regardless of if it's on defense or offense, if you're the head coach, because you need to do everything you can to control the outcome of that game and to make sure your team is prepared. That's just what it boils down to for me.
And sometimes coaching in the NFL is a game of chess, man. It's very hard, and even good guys sometimes get in their own way. So when a defensive play caller is doing bad things over the course of a game, sometimes an offensive head coach can say, "Hey, man, this like it's not going well." You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah, we got to
happens.
start
Trust
getting
me.
after the quarterback.
Yeah,
I need you to blitz a little bit more
yeah,
right now. We need a
right,
turnover.
right.
Something
Trust
like
me.
that.
There's these conversations occur almost
Yeah.
every game. Like that ain't working, man. We got to get away from it. Something like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's not saying here's my solution to what we should call on defense. You know what I mean? He's saying, like, he's not going to provide you what play to call. He's going to say this shit's not working. We're getting torched. You know what I mean? We can't play man. We can't play zone anymore. He's picking us apart. We got to play some man. Something like that. Something along those lines. Like,
Yeah.
so
Listen,
I
there's
want
a
I want
point
Ben Johnson to see the whole damn thing. I want him to be
to
standing over it,
oversee all
looking
of it.
down on it. Yeah, that's what I want. And that's what Ben
But
Johnson
not
checks.
micromanaging it. We
Just to
we
see
do
it.
want him to be able
To
to
see it.
delegate. He did say that
The checks and balances, man. The things that take care of themselves while you focus on what you got to focus on. You know what I mean? That's. You have no idea, guys, the extent that these guys
yeah,
go this sport goes to make it easy for like I said, the head coach and getting every play call from all of his coaches in his ear. I mean, these guys have systems of making sure their guys are doing the things like the standard that they have that Ben Johnson's talking about. There's ways of overseeing that. Even
well,
on the sideline during a game. There's ways of making this easier for these guys. You know what I mean?
Brandon, I want to make an overall point, just to Bears fans, because I mean, like, I'm happy. I'm happy Ben Johnson is the head coach. Again, he was not my first choice. I thought a guy like Vrabel, would be a much better fit for the Chicago Bears team. Not saying that I don't think Ben Johnson will be a good fit. I think it can work out really well, especially given that Caleb Williams is going to be the centerpiece of this team. But I do want to say, man, that let's not get over our skis again just because we got the best candidate on the market. I mean, this was a team that just lost 10 games in a row. This was a team that went 5-7. Okay. I'm sorry, 5-12. They only won 5 games. So I'm happy, and we should all feel good about the coaching hire. But there are so many more things that still need to happen in order for this team to find success in this coming season. And it's not just going to be Ben Johnson being the head coach. It's going to, again, the staff that he hires, the free agency that the Bears have, the draft that they have, and then the spring the spring football they have, right? And OTAs and training camp and all those things. They all have to go really well for this team to turn around and change what was a very dysfunctional season. Okay.
And then Ben
So
Johnson was asked that question.
what
What's going to take? What's it going to take to be competitive next season? To win, you said win now, Ben. What's it going to take? He was asked that question, and he said it's going to take a lot from everybody. And all it depends on is, are they willing to put in the work?
are you committed, and are you
Yeah.
willing to put in the work? Yes. So it's like, I just don't want us to go right back into saying, well, this team
No, and
is are like the conversation that happened earlier today, Brandon, between us, where the Lions defense versus the Bears defense. You were talked about the fact that Dennis Allen could end up in Detroit. Like, Detroit could be an option for Dennis Allen. And I
yeah.
mean, I just don't want us to talk ourselves into the fact that all of a sudden the Bears are a more desirable destination. I mean, what makes it that way? the players in this team did not perform. If I was choosing between the Lions defense to work with and the Bears defense to work with, I'm probably choosing the Lions defense just based on the fact that they have premier players. This Bears team still has a lot of work to do. There's no Aiden Hutchinson on this Bears defense. That person does not exist on this Bears defense.
Or on any other team's defense, really.
So we got Ben Johnson. We got our head coach. There's a lot more steps in this process that we have to get right in order to feel that level of confidence. I personally, I got tricked into higher expectations than I should have had going into this season. And I just want to just preach some caution in regards to that. Right. Yeah. Let one thing at a time before we get back into that mode. You know what I'm saying? Let the Bears have to earn this. The Chicago Bears are the same franchise that just took us through one of the worst seasons we've ever seen as Chicago Bears fans. That literally just happened. They have to earn this. They have to earn this. This coaching hire does not change any of that.
No, and this coaching, and I'm going to say this too, and I've Dustin, you know me. I'm not. A lot of people think my view is most often pessimistic, but you got to turn around and look at the results, right? I'm not often pessimistic about the Bears. They just most often suck. And here's the thing: you said we didn't get the number one candidate, and I agree with you. And this is why Vrabel was a better fit for the Bears, because I think you knew with Vrabel, man, he is like Ben Johnson said. Dan Campbell's Dan Campbell when he walks in the room. Mike Vrabel is. The risk was much less. I would have felt better about the Bears knowing that the head coach was right moving forward if Vrabel was the Bears head coach, right? Ben Johnson is still very much
it's an unknown.
Everybody keeps saying Adam Gase, which is frightening. That's the name I keep hearing. Could be the next Adam Gase. God, I hope not.
He could be the next Sean McVay. He could be the next Kyle
That's the word. That's the name that everybody uses on the other side.
It's the unknown. It's like his floor and his ceiling.
And there's more unknown.
Keep it in perspective is all.
And there's more unknown with Ben Johnson than there would have been with Mike Vrabel. The Bears decided 100%. To take that risk. They decided to take that risk, and they took it with conviction, guys. So yes, you can feel good about the manner in which the Bears made this hire. You can't start convincing yourself we're going to a Super Bowl anytime soon. That's for damn sure.
No, for sure.
And I think Bears fans are mostly, I hope, mostly grounded after, like Dustin, you said, the wound is still so fresh.
It literally just happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still bleeding. I'm not even sure if I'm going to make it, to be honest. But
having said all that, though, I did love his press conference. I loved everything about it. I loved the way he presented himself. I loved the answers that he had for every question.
And what did I say to you today?
The guy has a very good idea of what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. So that inspires confidence in me.
And what did I say to you today before we came on this show? That press conference meant something to me. And you're thinking to yourself, I think your response was well, of course. But they never really did when Matt Eberflus was addressing the media. You know what I mean? It was just stupid.
Matt Eberflus's first press conference,
salad nonsense.
Matt Eberflus's introductory press conference was hilarious. It was comical. There was nothing confidence inspiring about it. So we're already off to a better start. That's 100% true. 100%.
He relayed no valuable information. It was so disingenuous. He gave you we're just going to focus on next week's stuff. Ben Johnson was not afraid to answer questions directly in the face, man. Yeah. And I appreciate that for sure. Transparency. And he looked at his players, and he looked at his players directly in the eyes.
Directly.
To rest them.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I fucking love that.
So we're going to push. We're going to push. Is that the word he used? What word did he say? We're going to.
I don't know, push you out of your comfort zone, basically. I mean, and that's how people get better. I've trained a lot of people in the work that I do, and you have to, and people that don't want to try something, a lot of times if you got to push them to do it, to see that it's not that bad, and you're going to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? You're going to make some mistakes. That's okay. But just that approach is just so perfect from a coach. You know what I'm saying? And to just say 100%, we're going to push you out of your comfort zone, and you're going to get better because of it, or you're not going to be here.
That's and you're going to fail sometimes, and the failing is what you'll probably learn the most from. You know what I mean? Like all these, like Tom Brady said, he said it best. Failures were the one that losses were the ones that counted, man. It's the
Mhm.
same. It's not just in regards to winning or losing a football game. It's to winning or losing anything in preparation for the goal you want to achieve, right? So Ben Johnson knows what it takes. He knows what a winning culture looks like. That's for damn sure. You can hear that. Yeah, I mean you can see that listening to him talk.
And yet and still, he's coming to Chicago because the Lions lost to a team they should have beaten. So he has those losses and those failures to learn from and
Yeah,
build off of. It's
yeah.
not like he's not been battle tested by
Well,
those things himself.
he has those feelings to remember because I'm sure it's a feeling he won't forget, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that game to Washington in the fashion that Lions team did.
It's kind
So
of funny. It's kind of funny. The Commanders ended the Bears season and the Lions season this year. It's kind of funny when you think about that. And now Ben
yeah,
Johnson is the Bears head coach. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out, guys. I'm excited, but I also at the same time don't want to get too excited until I see what else they do and how they plan on fix. Because it's not. You said the biggest issue was the head coach, Brandon, but these players gave up. These players stopped playing. Honestly, they stopped playing hard. From my perspective, I Caleb Williams battled a lot of adversity, and that gives me confidence. But there's a lot of issues still with this team that need to be addressed. There just is, and I got to see what else they do and how they improve this roster before I start thinking, yeah, no, this is a turning point for the Chicago Bears franchise.
yeah. What
We
Chris
can't
Foster,
forget that we were just questioning every decision this team was making
what what
just a month and a half ago. We
what
can't
Chris
forget.
Foster, what Chris Foster just said here, man. I will be excited after both lines are fixed. Then we got our QB and two more. Then we got our new QB.
Yeah, what Chris Foster just said.
Not the
New
QB
QB.
part, but who knows? But the lines, man. I mean, that's the most you want to see that Ryan Poles can show you something different, right? Because talk about insanity, expecting different results every off season. This is where separate myself from I think the majority of the Bears fan base. Every off season, they get excited over the things that Ryan Poles didn't do on the offensive line. You know what I mean, Dustin? Like I was hearing a lot of like Nate Davis will play better and Braxton Jones could take the step and Coleman Shelton's is an upgrade from. It's just like no, there's nothing here to be excited about.
Yeah,
Darnell Wright might improve. He was a top 10 pick. That was it. That's all they had, and it showed.
you
So you
need at
got
least
Ryan
three new
Poles needs to
starters.
prove
You
no
need at
more of
least
this
three new
bargain
starters.
and bullshit. Put a team together. Put an offensive line together to protect the guy who this franchise depends on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, for sure. And it's just like,
Let's not
and
get twisted, man. Ben Johnson's it's awesome, it's exciting, it's important. Caleb Williams is still the most vital piece of all this.
Ryan Poles is 3 years into this, man, coming into his fourth year, right? And I keep hearing we got to give him time.
No, we
We
need to replace a lineman for every year he's been here.
we've given him 3 years. How much time is it going to take to give Chicago a winning football team? And if it takes 6 years, that's too long. The NFL stands for not for long. You don't get 5, 6, 7 years to execute your plan to turn a team around. This shit needs to happen sooner rather than later.
No,
I think Ryan Poles understands that, but come on, like
I made
we've
jokes
given him
about his
time.
I made jokes about his initial pitch. Kyle kept saying it to me. Like in his second season when I was bitching about polls, Kyle was like, he said 3 years, man. He said he said, give me 3 years. And I told Kyle, well, what the fuck kind of job is that? Who walks into a job and it's like, I
Yeah,
don't walk into a
exactly. Yeah.
job and like give me 6 months to a year and I'll be the performer that you want me to be. I'll be doing what you need me to do. Like no, I'm not
I'll
giving
start
anybody
earning the
anything.
money you're
Yeah.
paying me in 4 years.
I'm
But
not
you got to
giving
stick with
anybody.
me. You got to
Yeah,
just hang with me. It'll be
yeah.
worth it. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah. You're not giving anybody anything, man. Like this is a dog eat dog league. It is, and like you
Now,
said, Dustin, not for
for
long.
yeah, it is. It's not for long. Chris Foster, for perspective, when he came in, look what we had: negative 17 million in cap, no picks, bad roster. If he was fired today, look what new GM would have. 100%. There are things that he has done well. He has added to the draft capital. He has improved the cap situation. And the reason one of the big reasons Ben Johnson is here is because he believes that this roster is a pretty damn talented roster already. He said that himself earlier today. So Ryan Poles is the reason Ben Johnson is the head coach of the Chicago Bears right now.
Yeah,
Still need to produce results on the field, though. That still needs to equal results on the field. That still needs to happen.
And I paused, Dustin, when Ben Johnson said that. He said, this team has it's a really talented roster. And I thought to myself, like,
that might be the one disingenuous thing he said.
well, based on the results, how talented is it, man?
But that goes back to what you said, Brandon. He thinks that there was an issue with leadership. Clearly, if he thinks that highly of this roster,
we know there was. Mm-hmm. But I think we started to see more issues than that as the season went on. The offensive line obviously sucks, man. I mean, Ben Johnson's very aware of that. But there's some players, man, that we're paying Montez Sweat $98 million, and I'm just not sure, guys, that he's the piece that people think that he is.
Brandon, I torched that move the minute it happened. You know that the giving up draft a second round pick and forcing yourself to have to pay a guy who had never really established himself as the premier pass rusher you were going to have to pay him as, that was a big overstep. I thought it at the time. Yeah, and then Chris Foster it cost you an awful lot, and you put yourself in a position where you had no leverage, and you gave up more than you had to get him. Could have had him in free agency.
People keep saying to me, Dustin, like, just wait till they get some talent around them. Like, well, no, that's not the $100 million edge rusher. That's the $60 million edge rusher. Like, they all get better once they have talent around them. This is the multiplier, right? This is the guy who makes the other guy better, right? Montez Sweat was paid to be the guy that makes Walker that guy. You say, just wait till they get some talent, or you know what I mean? That's Sweat's
takes the attention, makes the other people. Yeah, and we didn't really see that this year. We really didn't. And Chris Foster says, I'm 100% he could have gotten a better pick for Fields. Yeah, cared more about Fields' feelings than our own team. Yes, that's a huge.
That hurt me. That was to me. That's still
you're not doing what's in the best interest of the Chicago Bears, and that is your number one job.
That's still the worst thing Ryan Poles has done. That's the most negligent thing Ryan Poles has done to me. To the football team, the organization, the fan base expects you to do what's best for this football team to win football games, man. I don't care how loyal you want to be. What about the other 52?
What about
those guys?
Yeah. I guess the question is, man, how much time do you give Ryan Poles? You got Caleb Williams because of Ryan Poles.
I think that's been dictated, Dustin.
Right? You got Caleb Williams because of Ryan Poles. And now you have Ben Johnson because of Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles is making these things happen. Nobody's going to debate that. Like I said, still needs to equal results on the field. How long do you give him to show that? You say you think that's been dictated, Brandon. What is that? Is that this year? Is that 2 years? Is that 3 more years?
I think the reason he didn't get the extension is because they are willing to fire him if they don't get the results they want. But like you just said, Dustin, the problem is he's leaving behind everything he did. It's his. The Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams Bears team is Ryan Poles. So if this year doesn't work out and you fire Ryan Poles, this is what he put together. And there's just no way the next GM walks in here like, this is exactly what I wanted. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen, right?
Chris Foster's given us an awesome compliment here, so I want to read it. You guys are my favorite shows, and I spam them all. You make me not spam my Caleb Payton here. We appreciate that. I saw Chris Foster say earlier, I don't know if we got to touch on it, that the fact that the Bears have hired Ben Johnson gives him more hope for Caleb Williams. That's the nicest thing I've heard Chris Foster say about Caleb Williams
we appreciate these shows.
Yeah,
you bring the heat.
Love having you here.
Active chat, man. That's the best, easiest shows to do when you guys stay active.
Amphiora says, I don't know if it's true, but just heard Poles actually has 2 years left under his contract.
I wouldn't be surprised, man, because this is what they did with Matt Eberflus. We all thought he had a 4-year deal. He apparently had a 5-year deal. And then David Kaplan made a good point in saying, is that the reason Ryan Poles had to retain him in the first place? He had 3 more years on his contract.
We gotta wait until there's 2.5 left until
Yeah, yeah. Let's not be irresponsible.
we gotta be fiscally responsible
Yeah.
about this. Yeah. I don't know, man. Again, there's still so much up in the air, and I just want to make sure that I just can't wrap my head around the fact that I was literally on here with all of you guys in the chat and everybody on every show questioning everything the Bears were doing and wondering if, and listen, the day they hired Ben Johnson, there was reports that Vegas was about to steal him from out from under him. Like, these things have all kind of been so close. Like, it could have gone one way or the other. I just need to see more. Ben Johnson is a great fucking start. We talked about the trends changing with the McCaskies, with George, and letting his football people do the football things and getting the fuck out of the way. Give them what they need to make the decisions and the moves that they need to make. So, like, these are all positive things, but I still need to see more to start believing in this franchise that has spurned me my entire life. I mean, to be quite honest, like, it just has. There's been a couple good years. I mean, there's been mostly a lot of dysfunction. If Ben Johnson is the man to change that, I am all for it, and I'm here for that. I just need to see more.
Yeah, and you especially need to see more and what, because, like I said, man, Ben Johnson thinks what he thinks. You're going to need to see ryanpoles bring some talent onto this football team. They're not there yet.
This roster needs to be improved
They-
in a good amount of areas.
They need trenches, top to bottom. They really do, guys. Honestly, if you have 4 players on the defensive line and 5 on the offensive line, you could theoretically replace 7 of those guys. Honest to God. Dustin, you could at least improve at 7 of those positions, right? We'll say Montez Sweat and Darnell Wright are locks, right? Those
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, Walker is a solid rotational piece. And I think Dexter has kind of shown himself to be a solid rotational piece. These are not the guys that you want to be starting for your football team. No. I just haven't seen that.
These are not game changers. You need a 3-tech that's going to change a game.
On defense, I am comfortable with Byard. I am comfortable with Jalen Johnson. I am comfortable with Edwards. And I am comfortable with Sweat. And Sweat is highly overpaid. Huh?
And Kyler Gordon.
Sorry, yes, 5 guys on defense out of 11 guys I am comfortable with right now. So, and I could get a new cornerback. I don't trust Tyree Stevenson or Terrell Smith right now, right? I need a new strong safety probably because I don't know when Jaquan Brisker is going to play again. Tremaine Edmonds has badly underperformed the contract the Bears gave him. There's no defensive tackle once Billings went out. I mean, like, there's not enough depth. There are a lot of issues that still need to be fixed just on the defensive side. We haven't even talked about the fact that the offensive line needs at least 3 starters replaced this offseason. The 3 competent starters need to be added to this team for the offensive line this offseason on top of everything else I just listed.
Yeah, I would agree, man. Like I said, at least 2 of the guys on the defensive line need two of those positions need new starters. I would say 3, honestly, but people will disagree with me about Javon Dexter. I think the Bears need 3 starters on the defensive line, and I also think I agree with you. The Bears need at least 3, because the realistic we would all say they need 4. They need 4, but you can't.
Yeah, you don't bank
if
on
they can get because we're talking about impact players, guys. We're not talking about getting slightly better than the guy.
I don't want another Coleman Shelton.
Yeah, no, they need 3 impact players. So if one of the 4 needs to remain, it is what it is. But the line needs to improve. Absolutely. I do have some headlines and deadlines if you want to jam.
Let's real quick. Let's check in with Turd Ferguson. What's up, man? Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Hit that like button. He asked, have they said how many years is Ben's contract? The full details have not come out. I imagine it's going to be a 5 or 6 year deal. I mean, that's generally how these things work. And I've heard upwards of 15 million. The number that I saw was 14.5 million per year. That's a lot of money for a first-time head coach. Good for you, Ben Johnson. Good job, bud.
Yeah, he wants to live in Chicago for the remainder of his days, guys.
And we want that too. We want that too as Bears fans. That means things are going well if that's happening. I want
Ben Johnson to
be Lake Bluff in 3 years.
I want Ben Johnson to be Pete Carroll's age when he retires from the Bears.
Yeah. Headlines, deadlines, lifelines. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's roll. We'll go quick too. Liam Combs has a tougher road ahead than Aaron Glenn.
100%. Yes. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence. I don't trust that Jaguars franchise overall. I mean, they got a very easy division. That's one thing that's working for them. The AFC South is trash. So, I mean, there's that. I like Liam Cohen. I hope he does well, and I hope he can help Trevor Lawrence right the ship. But I just don't believe in Trevor. I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, Aaron Glenn, he's in a better situation.
Oh, the signing of Ben Johnson confirms that the speculation that the Bears will address running back early in the draft.
Not early, no. I say that's a deadline. I think you can find a lot of value in this draft in the middle rounds for running backs. They got the third round, they got the fifth round. That's where I would target a running back. The Bears do need one, but again, it's hard to speculate these things because free agency is going to happen, and like there's some decent free agent running backs out there that could be serviceable as the Thunder to DeAndre Swift's Lightning. That's what the Bears.
I was asking more so because the Lions, whom Ben Johnson was a part of, signed a big running back in free agency while also drafting a running back pretty high. So maybe they think they have the free agent.
You have Swift already.
Yeah, so drafting the high guy would be the next step.
I think it's a headline that the Bears draft a running back to complement DeAndre Swift and to complement this offense, make it better. I don't know about early. Early doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. If the Bills lose in the playoffs, the Bills organization.
I like that, Chris Foster. Real quick, sorry. He says free agency, sign Trey Smith. Everybody wants Trey Smith. I would love to have him. He would immediately change his offensive line. Sign Sweat, defensive end from the Eagles, and sign Najee Harris. Everybody's dogging Najee Harris, man. I still think there's something there, and I think he's the perfect type of compliment back to DeAndre Swift. The guy runs fucking hard. I know that, and he's a decent pass blocker. I would love Najee Harris if you can get him on a good prove-it deal. I don't want to break the bank for a Najee Harris. No, thank you. I don't want a DeAndre Swift-sized deal for Najee Harris. But if you can get him on a one-year prove-it deal, hell yeah, I'm with it, Chris Foster. I like it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I like Trey Smith as well. You're right, Dustin. I've heard just about everybody who's in our chat has told us Trey Smith.
Trey Smith. Everybody wants Trey Smith. I like Ojulari out of New York. He was a high pick, a defensive end out of Georgia. He's in New York right now. Yeah, I like him. I still think there's a lot of upside there. I would take Ojulari, I think, over Sweat, just to throw in my 2 cents.
All right. If the Bills fall short again in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Bills organization, or the Bills, upper management should consider McDermott's future.
Deadline, 100%. McDermott's a great coach, man. You don't have. If I have a coach that's getting me that many cracks at it, there's no way I'm fucking moving on from him because he can't. They can't get over the hump thing is just silly to me. You're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. You're talking about one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time already in Patrick Mahomes. It's a tough hump to get over, man. But there's no way what's behind door B is better than McDermott. There's just no way. Can you name me a candidate out there they can replace McDermott with that's going to be fucking better? That's going to make the team better? They promote Joe Brady? No. I don't see that. McDermott's a damn good head coach, and that team always has an identity, and that team always plays hard. I would not move on from him ever.
Bruce said deadline. I'm not sure which one to.
I think it's the McDermott one. He's in agreement with me.
Headline or deadline, Dustin? This is Josh Allen's year.
I've been picking the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl since the preseason. That's like my one pick I've got right up to this point. I had the Eagles kind of deep in the playoffs, but I didn't have the fucking Commanders, I'll say that. And I had the Bills in the playoffs, but not this far. So I mean, yeah, I say deadline, man, because like I think the Chiefs are gonna win. They're at home.
You want to waver from your Chiefs bet?
It's not a bet. It's just I think they're the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough to bet against them anyways, though, right?
Dude, I would love it. I'm rooting for Josh Allen. I hope Josh Allen gets over that hump this Sunday. I really do. I'll root for it. I'm not going to predict it.
I would like to at least see him get to a Super Bowl, man. And a Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels Super Bowl would be pretty exciting, probably. Oh, who knows? Probably turn into like a defensive dud.
Would you trade Caleb Ben Johnson, and all of our draft picks for Mahomes and Reed. That would be the most buster trade ever. Would you do it? It's worth considering.
I would say no, man.
It's
the draft, giving all the draft capital, the entire I feel like Ben Johnson and Caleb are pretty. They're pretty exciting. The Chiefs aren't getting Super Bowl rings previously, but you're getting Ben Johnson. Caleb's not like super far below Mahomes and Reed. You give him a couple draft picks, man.
Chris Foster says this: I want Ben over Reed for age. You want Ben for 15 years. You can say the same thing about Caleb Williams over Patrick Mahomes, my man. You say the same thing, right? Caleb Williams is supposed to be that next generation of quarterback that's going to play that same role.
Yeah, I'm hoping Caleb and Ben aren't that far below Reed and Mahomes. So I'm saying I'm sticking with my guys. Right?
Yeah, I'm keeping my draft picks too, for sure.
I'm hoping that Caleb and Ben Johnson emulate that, to be honest, what's going on over there in Kansas City.
Yeah, go have a sleepover with Reed and Mahomes. Have some chicken nuggies.
Yeah. Maybe Kelsey and Taylor will show up.
Chris Foster says, I smell like shit tonight. Yeah, just tonight, Chris Foster.
Worse than smelling like shit. All right. After just Chris is killing it on the comments, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
After the plucking of Detroit's coaching staff and the poor fashion in which the Minnesota Vikings and Green Bay Packers respective seasons ended, the Bears.
I'm sorry, I lost track. That was a lot. a lot of
after
words.
The plucking of Detroit's coaching staff and the manner in which the Lions and Packers season ended, the Bears could win the NFC North as early as next season.
Man, deadline. Listen, I sat on the house all hangover because I had been saying, I don't see how the Bears can compete in this division next year no matter what they do. I've changed on that. They can compete in this division. You saw that the NFC North might have been a little bit more highly touted than they actually were.
Maybe a little more schedule favors.
Yeah. So I mean, you saw chinks in everybody's armor. The Packers could not beat any good teams. The Vikings, once you started pressuring Darnold, they became kind of useless on offense, and all those weapons meant nothing. And when the Lions lost everybody on defense, and they couldn't stop people. So I mean, there was chinks in everybody's armor. So Ben Johnson 100% believes he can compete this year. I believe the Bears can compete. I'll say deadline to winning the division, man. I'll say that.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, man. It's like you said, can't get over your skis, right? So that would be kind of an example of that, I think, to come out and say that the Bears are capable of that next season. But I agree with you, man. I think the Bears were competing in their division this year.
Yeah, they were.
I thought Caleb Williams threw phenomenal statistics. Guys, we can talk about Caleb's woes, the shortcomings, the ups and the downs, the roller coaster that was, but
mostly external.
When he peaked on his roller coaster,
very impressive.
It was against his division.
Yeah,
that was the best
very
football.
Impressive.
Caleb Williams. I mean, the Rams, Jaguars back to back.
Panthers.
Panthers, Jaguars back to back. The two very bad football teams. That was the best Caleb looked all season. Best the Bears looked all season. But against the division, Caleb hit another high, right, on the roller coaster that was his rookie year. I mean, I thought he played phenomenal football against this
in the second half, especially against Detroit and Green Bay in those games. Yes, 100%. And listen, man, a lot of the stuff that Caleb dealt with in terms of his woes that you mentioned, Brandon, they were external. They were things that were not within his control. The things that he could control, like not throwing interceptions, he controlled pretty well. The things that he could control, like trying to not get sacked for as long as possible before it eventually, happened because it was inevitable because this offensive line was trash. I don't care what PFF says. I watched this offensive line. They sucked.
Ridiculous.
Caleb dealt with a lot of adversity, even for a rookie quarterback. I mean, the amount that he dealt with and still performed pretty admirably and still came to the podium every week and talked about how he could get better, what he could have done better. I mean, there's a lot.
Still got up out of bed on Mondays. You know what I mean, guys?
Yeah.
You don't. Like, did you hear? Did you watch the video I shared of Dan Campbell crying when the season ended?
I had already watched it. I had watched it, yeah, in the
When
press
he's
conference
talking about when he starts to tear up, talking about the players, how
and what
much
they've
the
been through.
players,
Yeah.
and he says, "And your body's beat to shit." You don't think about that, man. Caleb was getting up every Monday, guys, feeling probably
Bruised and
something you've
bloody.
never felt. I
Yeah.
mean, like you got run over by a
Like
fucking
you were in a
car.
car accident the day
That's,
before,
that's how
yes.
he's feeling, waking up. And these guys just get up, and even when you have nothing to believe in, your head coach is fired. If there's nothing left, Caleb Williams was going out there, guys, and trying to win football games. That
And
matters.
down to the last game, played his ass off against Green Bay. And it meant everything to him that they won that game. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
he
saying?
was
So
so
like,
excited.
we have a competitor at quarterback that wants to get better, and now we've paired him with a competitor at head coach that wants to get better. So those are good vibes. Winning the NFC North though this season, that's a tall ask. That's all.
Yeah, like you said,
Ruiz
man.
Seven, what up, man? How you doing?
Ruiz Seven, what's going on?
Thanks
Bear
for
down.
joining us. Like,
Um,
subscribe, hang out, share.
yeah,
Appreciate
let us know.
your
How do you feel about
input.
Ben Johnson, Ruiz? Seems general consensus is a lot of people are excited. He says, guys, oh, guys. Oh, yeah, that's
Purple
not, and I think,
Jesus.
like I said, I aforementioned it, and I think Caleb and Ben Johnson seem very similar to me, man, in their aspirations. And that could be a match made in heaven. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I think both of these guys want to be the greatest at what they're doing. I got that from Ben Johnson watching the press
Mhm.
conference, and you see it in
Same
Caleb.
vibe, same feeling. Yep. Yep.
Caleb wants to be the best. You know,
Lions still run the
and in a
NFC North. I
selfish,
agree.
even in a selfish way, Caleb wants to be the guy with 4,000 yard, 40 touchdown seasons. You know what I mean? He wants to be the guy who.
If that means winning. If that means
No,
winning.
that's what
He's
winning is what's most important to him. But when I
yes.
say that he wants to be the best, guys, this is how hungry and driven he is. He wants to be the best in every fashion. He wants to break the records, but he wants to break but he wants to win the Super Bowls too. You know what I mean? Kale wants it all. He wants to be the best that ever did it. He wants to be the GOAT. And it takes more than just winning championships, and it takes more than having statistics. It takes everything.
Combined Super Bowl wins from Detroit and Minnesota. Yeah. It's not a high number. But the Lions still do run the NFC North. The NFC North will still go through the Lions this upcoming season. I believe that. So I
And
mean,
Dan Campbell is a lot of people are concerned about what happens with the Detroit Lions after the departure of all these coaches. Dan Campbell's Dan Campbell. That's Dan Campbell's shit, man.
yeah, but Ben Johnson is gonna take a lot of pleasure in beating Dan Campbell. He's
Yeah,
gonna,
I
yeah,
was I was
yeah.
thinking today. I was picturing the awkwardness in that handshake because before that game starts, they're going to be on the field together, hanging out, buddies, talking, shaking hands, hugging. At the end of that game, if Ben Johnson beats Dan Campbell, let's say the first time the Bears play Detroit, it's going to be awkward, man. The exchange at the end of that football game, I'll bet. Because as
Yeah,
much as
no, they're
and
both gonna
as
want to.
much as you love somebody, it sucks to lose,
They're
man.
both gonna want to rip each other's throats out in that first matchup. I
Yeah,
guarantee
Dan
that.
Campbell might bite his
Ruiz
knee down.
Ruiz answers your question. Loves the hire, has that crazy look in his eyes that you want from a coach. Good vibes from the press conference and all the interviews I've seen. Looking forward to the draft. Looking forward to the coaching staff hires. Looking forward to the free agency. A lot of steps still that need to be accomplished here. But yes, it's about as good as you can feel from a hire. We just again have to keep in perspective that it's just one step in a lot of steps that need to be taken in order to turn this
Great,
team.
great comment, Ruiz. But you gave me a nightmare of a flashback of Adam Gase once again when he
Crazy
said
eyes.
that's all I can think about is that interview that he did.
Jesus, pretty bad. Caleb has an arm, but he can learn to be very accurate. That's what Goff does. Yeah. I mean, and Goff has an arm too. I mean, it again. Ben Johnson, where he's going to help Caleb the most, is getting him to work within structure, play with timing, play with anticipation, and stay within the system.
and
Take the play
and
that the defense is giving you until you can take it all. You know what I'm
and
saying?
that's something we didn't talk about either, Dustin. Is one thing that Ben Johnson can immediately approve with Caleb Williams is I don't know don't know if it was communication where the breakdown was, Dustin, but it didn't feel like half the season receivers did not know what the hell Caleb was doing. Caleb didn't know what receiver was doing. Balls were being thrown into places where receivers were apparently supposed to be and weren't. I don't know. You know what I mean? There was just so many misses in this season in Caleb's rookie year, where you weren't sure if everybody knew the same play. Oh, it
Hey,
was strange.
Purple Jesus, don't let nobody push you out of this chat. We love having you here, man. We appreciate you. I still remember the first time you came on, like it was yesterday. We love having you here.
Yeah, and Aquaman's a Lions fan. We get them all.
Yeah,
Come
Aquaman
one,
said he
come
was
all.
going to unsubscribe because Ben Johnson got hired by the Bears. So I don't know if he did or not. Remember, Aquaman said he was out.
Lions fans are
Lions fan. Listen, they are, yeah, and I understand why. I understand why. But like at the end of the day, you should be happy for a guy that brought you that amount of success, that earned an opportunity. You can't fault somebody for that.
And if the Lions promote somebody from Ben Johnson's staff to be their offensive coordinator and they're firing on all cylinders again, Ben Johnson left you success.
We got
He didn't just instill success.
Yeah, 100%.
He made it sustainable after his departure.
And I think the Lions are and I think the Lions are going to promote from within for that to replace that offensive. I don't
So
think
do I absolutely 100% feel whoever is the offensive coordinator of that team was already on that football team.
Yeah, I think
defensive coordinator, I don't think so. I think they're going to go outsource their defensive coordinator. When it comes to the offense, Dustin, I agree with you 100%.
Brandon, we got a good question here. I don't, if you got more deadlines, we'll get to them. But Ruiz says,
I don't. We went through.
All right, perfect. Can I get your guys' outlook on the top 3 picks we have in the draft? Needs/wants. We got the 10th pick, the 39th pick, the 41st pick, right? Those the first round and the 2 second rounds. What are your needs or wants with those top 3 picks, Brandon?
I'm absolutely going left tackle with my top 10 pick. I don't think there's this draft class does have 2 or 3 guys that I believe will be solid left tackles in the NFL.
You can get Banks or Campbell. It's hard to pass up.
Yes, and then I would go. I'm a sucker for pass rush. That's that next pick. I would go either a monster.
Oh my God, Mike! Do you see this pass rush out there right now, Mike? Yeah. Oh my God, I've never seen anything like it.
Chris, yeah, I would go pass rush with the second pick, the first pick in the second round, and the latter pick in the second round. I would go back to interior offensive line.
Yeah, I think you gotta address your lines. And it doesn't have to be a pass rusher on the edge.
No, I said a tackle. I would love a tackle.
It could be a defensive tackle that applies that pressure up the middle, which can be much more valuable than the pressure off the edge. And
or a guy who can move around. But Chris Jones can switch wherever the hell you want to play him.
Brandon, I agree with you, man, and I feel like we got to hit O-line in at least 2 of those top 3 picks, but I also get scared of pigeonholing yourself to where you miss out on a really good talent because you're drafting for need instead of the best.
Right. I hate saying draft the left tackle with the 10th pick, but I do believe, Dustin, if Banks or Campbell are there, they're blue chip talent. So if they're there, Banks and Campbell.
The concern with those guys is their arm length. Yeah, they could end up playing guard instead of tackle.
But I mean, you could use a hell of a guard too, man. I mean,
listen, I don't think any of the tackles on the left tackle options on the Bears are better options than either of those guys. If you were to draft either one of those guys, they got to play left tackle for you because they immediately become the best left tackles on your team. Not a big believer in Braxton Jones. Karan Amagaji is obviously still a work in progress. You need something better than that. Amfiora says first D-line, second offensive guard, second is going to be defensive line / offensive guard. See, and again, this is all well and good, guys, but what if you get to 10 and Abdul Carter is still sitting there? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what if? I'm taking Abdul Carter if he falls to me at 10.
Yeah, is that or what if he falls
the defensive line.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if he falls to 8 and you can trade up? There's so many factors that can play into this. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into saying I got to do this, I want to see the Bears address the offensive line and the defensive line heavy and strong throughout this entire offseason, whether that's free agency or draft. I definitely want to see that. But I mean, if I can get one of those top 2 left tackles, I'd be hard pressed to pass up on them with that first pick. I really would.
God, I don't believe he will be, but could you imagine if Carter? I mean, obviously, Dustin. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and you know my view. If those guys that I'm looking at as top 5 talents in this draft fall to the Bears at 10, I don't care
Yeah,
what
you got to
position. I don't
jump on
care
them.
what
Yeah.
position they fucking play.
Don't trade back.
Yeah,
Trade up to get a guy who
yeah.
makes an impact.
I don't care
That's
if the
that's
guy
what I'm
plays.
saying.
I don't care if it's an Ashton Gent. Like if the Bears think, hey, this is the best blue chip talent on the board right now, where we're picking. This is the guy that's left. This is the guy that changes the trajectory of your future. This guy, even
Mhm.
if it's a running back, this is your Saquon Barkley. Get the guy, man, for sure. If that
Yeah,
tenth
because
pick,
DeAndre Swift is as much as I love him, he's never going to be
no,
Saquon
he's not
Barkley.
Derrick Henry. He's not going to have the
Yeah.
impact that Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are having, and
Mhm.
Jameer Gibbs are having on football
So
games. So if you believe Ashton Genty at 10 is that guy, is Jameer Gibbs? If you
then you
think
should
that,
take him. Then you
yeah,
should take him.
because that guy, offensive line or not, that guy's going to impact your football team immediately, right?
Mhm.
Day one,
Yep.
day one.
Yep.
And Caleb's going to
Uh,
be able to turn around and give the ball to somebody like that. Sure, go
Purple
for it.
Jesus echoing what we're talking about here. Never draft for need in the first 2 rounds. Always take the best player
Yeah,
available.
first 2 rounds, I would say top 15 picks. That's where I after that I get out of blue chip. I start looking at needs
That's
because
hard. It's hard to say, man, because if you can get an uber talented guy like Cooper DeJean in the 2nd round last year, I'm
right,
taking him. I don't give a
right,
fuck who I have at
and you
corner
and the
or
Bears
safety. I'm taking that guy.
and you can do that. Like that, those talents will fall to the second. Like things like that
Yeah.
happen. So
Hmm.
but I also believe that the Eagles just happen to get a blue chip and the position of most need where
Yeah,
Cooper
so it
DeJean
worked out
fell.
pretty well for them.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to work out that way for the Bears because they make shitty decisions.
No, it
Chris
did,
Foster,
Dustin. It did. Jalen Carter was one of the
and
greatest
they made a
needs on
shitty
the team.
decision
He
to
wasn't because
trade away.
because a lot of people, when I debate that, a lot of people throw at me like, "How badly did they need the offensive line? How fucking badly did they need a defensive tackle?"
Your head
They
coach
needed,
is telling you this is the one thing that makes my defense work.
yeah, he's the anchor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll wait till the 2nd round
yeah.
to get that. We're
Hey,
gonna go ahead and get.
we don't need an anchor. This ship can float around for a while. Like it's like like,
If you can make Braxton and Shelton your depth on O line, that would be great. I 100% agree, Chris. If those guys, if Braxton Jones becomes a swing tackle and Shelton becomes your backup interior lineman, I'm with that. I don't want those guys starting. You cannot go into this season with Braxton Jones as your starting left tackle and Coleman Shelton as your starting center. Those are the
no,
two most important positions on this offensive line for Caleb Williams, and you have to get better at those spots. You have to, whether it's free
no,
agency or the draft.
and I believe Ben Johnson said just because he kind of felt obligated to. He did say we need to upgrade to the offensive line, but he also said I'm excited to bring a good offensive line coach in here to work with some of these young guys. So I do believe, guys, that Ryan Poles hasn't sold out on Kieran Amagaji and Braxton Jones. They're depth pieces. He wants them here, and he wants them to get better. And I don't know how Ryan Poles didn't open his eyes to the fact that Chris Morgan was probably the worst coach on this staff, guys. If results are a reflection of coaching, there's nothing you can say to defend this guy. There isn't. Nobody improved. The guys that got here got like it looked like
Guys
Lucas
that got here
Patrick and
got worse. Guys that
yeah,
left here got
Lucas
better.
Patrick, Ryan Bates got worse. Lucas Patrick got better upon departure.
Uh-huh.
This
Yeah.
guy Morgan's results were screaming to you that he's not doing his job well. So I do believe that Ben Johnson also thinks that the offensive line's performance was not 100% based on the players, man. I think he thinks
Well,
that a
I
lot
think
of
it's
the
a
low.
combination of both. And
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
the Bears offensive line is not
Yeah.
very good in terms of talent.
No,
T
and
says
unfortunately, Tevin Jenkins suffers injury because that would be another piece you'd be inclined
he's
to
a guy
keep.
you can't resign because you can't trust him
No,
to stay on
you
the
can't
field.
pay him. No, and he
Yeah.
would, and he's still gonna ask for a
Yep.
fair amount of money, man.
T says if you guys don't self-destruct, you have some talented players. If Lions fans don't self-destruct from all this anguish from losing Ben Johnson, they'll be lucky too. But nobody is worried. I have a question. How many years away do you guys really think you are from being good? I mean, I've been saying, man, I think we got another year of progressing with this team and figuring things out, especially with a rookie first-time head coach and all the issues that this Bears franchise has had and the season they're coming off of. But you do see teams go from worst to first. There are examples of it every year in the NFL. There are examples of it every year in the NFL. Commanders were, a 4-win team last year and a 3-win team last year and are now in the NFC Championship game this year. Things like this do
The
happen. There
Houston
is
Texans
precedent
from a year
for it.
before.
Yeah. It always
I
happens.
think the NFL they say like once every off. I think they say like once a year a team flips
Yeah,
from being
Yeah, exactly. It always happens. But realistically, man, I mean, at least another year of figuring this thing
Well,
out and adding some more talent to this roster, I think, to
and
be
T,
quite honest.
I think it's important too that no matter how excited we get and no matter how high expectations Ben Johnson has for himself, because he should, but he can't get discouraged from failure either because we need to have patience with Ben Johnson. He's not just a first time
Same
head
way
coach,
we do with
guys.
Caleb.
He's not just a first time head coach, he's a play caller. This is tough. Guys, Andy Reid is when you say Andy Reid does it, yes, Andy Reid
Yeah.
does it.
He was
That's
doing it in
that's that's
Philadelphia when I was in junior high.
yeah, that's kind of a testament to how hard it is, right? Well,
Yeah, yeah.
well, Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid and Sean McVay, right, guys? Super Bowl coaches are the guys who are able to wrap their heads around this. So I guess that's good, right, Ben? Right, Dustin? If Ben Johnson is able to manage head coaching and being a good play caller, those guys typically end up in Super Bowls.
Fuck yes, they do. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Andy
Andy
Reid.
Reid,
Yep, yep.
Matt LaFleur has gotten pretty damn close. I mean, these guys do
Mm-hmm.
succeed. Yeah.
Tankathon's mock has Abdul going second to the Browns. Yeah, listen, I just threw Abdul Carter out there
Yeah,
as an
because he's an
example of,
incredible
yeah,
talent that
I
you
don't
couldn't pass
expect him
up.
to be there for the Bears. I'm just saying, like, you have to be malleable going into the draft. You can't say, I got to get a tackle here and I got to get a guard. There's no way to fucking plan it like that. You have to take the best player available, especially, I agree with Purple Jesus, but those first 2 to 3 picks for the Bears, you got to take the best player available. There's not enough talent on this team to pass up talent for need. I just don't think so. And that goes into T's question of how long do you think?
I don't, but
It'll happen a lot quicker if you add talent at every draft pick.
and you have to start, but you have to start gauging that as well, man. Once you're getting into round two, like if there's a corner available that you think is the best talent available on the draft board, and you have Tyreek and Jalen, are you taking that over an offensive line? Like
not a quarterback, Chris Foster. I'm not taking a
no,
quarterback.
yeah, no, we're gonna. Yeah, I think Ben Johnson's gonna knock maybe like a undrafted free agent signing because he doesn't like Tyson Bagent. Oh, I'm gonna piss off the Bears fans.
Listen, if you didn't hit that subscribe button, man, hit that subscribe button. We've shouted out your comments. We appreciate you. I don't care that you're a fucking Lions fan. I rooted for the Lions this year.
My grandpa was Lions fans growing up, man. I watched many Lions
man.
games.
Come back and join us next Thursday, man. Says before I leave, I'll say this: if Ben keeps his word and beats up on the Packers, then good. I can't stand Green Bay, but you guys go ahead and fight for the bomb spots in the NFC North. Go Lions! Listen, right now, neither of our teams are playing.
Got nothing to say to defend that.
But the Lions are a much better team than the Bears. It's not even a question. I picked the Lions to win the division going into this year, and yeah, they did. And hopefully, they play some good games. It's going to be fun to see Ben Johnson going up against Dan Campbell. That's one thing I'll say for sure. But hit that fucking subscribe button, bro. Smash the like button. I just did, even though it's a Bears stream. Appreciate it. I didn't ask for the like button though. I asked for the subscribe button, motherfucker.
Thanks, T. Thanks for hanging out. Dustin,
Frank Kuros, what up?
We got about 10 minutes left here. I think Dustin, you want to talk a little bit about these 2 football games we have this.
Oh yeah, there's still football being played. The Bears have been in the off season for like fucking 3 months, so I kind of forget that there's still football being played. Yeah, let's talk about it. What do you want to talk about?
Is this both on Sunday?
They're both on Sunday, yeah, 2:00 and 5:30. The NFC game is first. The AFC game is the late night.
All right, so let's dive into that NFC game. Commanders going to Philadelphia, man. How you feeling?
Commanders went into Philadelphia most recently and were down big, and Jaden Daniels led a furious comeback. Jalen Hurts did not play in that game, just to be clear, but Jaden Daniels made play after play to win that game in a game that they should have had no chance in.
I did, however, think
Commanders are not scared. The Commanders are not scared at all. They're playing loose, they're playing free, and they think they can beat the Eagles. So that makes this game exciting to me.
I did, however, think that Pickett still sucks when I watched that game, but they did.
It was like a tale of two halves.
The
first half he was really good. Second half, not so much.
Yeah, I think what's going to be important in this game, man, is that Philadelphia is able to establish Saquon Barkley early and often.
I don't think that's going to be a problem for them.
I think that's Philadelphia's chance of winning this football game because I do think that the Commanders have a better attack on offense.
When the Lions just played if you're since you're still in here, I was furious that the Lions went away from Jameer Gibbs so often.
Oh, he
That
would
they
have ran
kept
for
trying
300
that they kept
yards.
trying to force David Montgomery, that they kept trying to put the ball in Jared Goff's hands. When in the first half, Jameer Gibbs was averaging 19.5 yards per carry. He averaged 7.5 yards per carry for the fucking game. He would have won you that game if you just stuck with the run. The Eagles are not going to be stupid enough to go away from that. And this Commanders' run defense can be gotten. They
It's
just showed
questionable.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's more than
questionable.
questionable. Jameer Gibbs lit them up, and Saquon Barkley and
DeAndre
Jameer
Swift
Gibbs.
had like a 45-yard
Yeah,
touchdown against that
listen,
team too.
listen. You can run all over this Commanders defense. The Eagles are just Jalen Hurts will have his 135 yards, one push touchdown, maybe one passing touchdown. Saquon Barkley is going to run all over this team, and I
AJ
think
Brown should have a big game too, man.
the
This is a
Eagles will control the
soft
clock.
secondary. This is a soft secondary. They've gotten better over the course of the season, but they're still not talented enough. They need to get better players.
Yeah, T was with me on that. I couldn't believe it. I was shouting at the whole game, Brandon. You remember through the
Oh, dude, I was me as well. I just love watching Jameer Gibbs, so I was pissed as a fan.
Yeah, so I think Philly wins that game. They're at home. They're the better football team. But a big part of me, and T, cover your ears, wants to see Jaden Daniels just fucking do it, bro. Go
I
to
think
the
the
fucking
moment is
Super
too
Bowl as a
new for all of
rookie.
these guys. For Dan
I
Quinn,
don't know.
I think for Dan Quinn, for Jaden Daniels, for
Dan Quinn's been in a Super Bowl, bro. He's coached in the Super Bowl. It's
I
not
know,
new to him.
not as a head coach.
Yeah, as a head coach, he was the head coach of the Falcons in the Super Bowl that they lost to the Patriots 28-3. They were up 28-3 and lost. Dan Quinn has been here before. This shit ain't new to him. So I mean, the
Jaden
Commanders,
Daniels, however, has not, and I think
but Jaden Daniels had not been in a divisional championship game before either, or a wild card game before
yeah,
either.
it gets harder though, man. It
Found
gets
ways
harder.
to make plays. So I don't know, man. I'm going to be rooting for Jaden Daniels, just to be clear, because I'm just a huge fan, and I would love to see him find a way to win that game. I really would. I don't think they do, though. I think the Eagles established the run, and their defense is really good. Huh?
I told you who I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Saquon Barkley. That's what I'm rooting for. I want Saquon Barkley to go get his fucking ring. That would be awesome, man. Saquon Barkley's been playing in this league for a long time. He's been beat up. He's torn knees. He's made his way back. Guys, that took a lot of fucking work. A lot of work for Saquon Barkley to be looking like a 21-year-old running right now. Like, I mean, this guy has worked his ass off. It's exciting to see him put a team on his back and take him to stardom, man. I mean, like, this guy.
Talk about Josh Allen. You talk about Josh Allen getting over that hump. Saquon Barkley has never had a chance at a Super Bowl like this. So I mean, like,
and he was an MVP finalist, guys. Him and Josh Allen both. You want to see these guys like players like these. You want to see get their rings. You want to remember the year these guys won their Super Bowls. You know what I mean? You wish Brian Urlacher would have won a Super Bowl, and not just because you're a Bears fan, but to say like he achieved that goal.
Yeah,
he was one of the best that did it, and it's important to see guys like Saquon Barkley achieve that goal. To me, it is.
I think the Eagles win, man. I'm rooting for the Commanders, though, and I won't be surprised if this is a down to the wire game potentially. But if the Eagles win, it's going to be in pretty convincing fashion, controlling the clock, beating them up on defense. I mean, like they have the chance to impose
that Eagles defense, man. That's like Jaden Daniels has his hands full. That Eagles defense has just gotten better as the season has gone on, man.
Yep. And you got Jalen Carter there, so just look out.
Yeah, you have that game-changing player.
Game wrecker. Amphiorus, as we're going to transition, you got the Eagles too, right?
I do, yeah. The Eagles in that game, yeah.
As we're going to transition to the Bills Chiefs, Amphiorus says, my uncle was a huge Bills fan and passed before they could win a Super Bowl. Watched them lose 4 in a row. Fuck, man. I can't imagine being a fan of that Bills team. I mean, it's been tough watching the Niners the last couple of years, not even close to the heartbreak Bills fans dealt with.
Right, and Jim Kelly's one of those guys that I was talking about, guys you just wanted to see win a Super Bowl. That's how I feel about Saquon.
Wants the Bills to finally win it. Yep. And T wants to see the Bills win 1-2. And then T just throws out a little caution here regarding Ben Johnson. We are well aware of this. Me and Brandon talked about it during that game. And we talked about it on this show. We talked about it on the House Hall Hangover. Ben can get a little cute with his play calling. You know, the Lions were able to get away with it until they weren't able to get away with it in the playoffs. So I mean, like, yeah, I hope Ben.
And in the playoffs, it's much harder to get away with, and you shouldn't call it.
Yeah.
You just don't see other offensive coordinators in the playoffs right now doing that. Even Cliff Kingsbury.
Especially not down in the fourth quarter, 38-28 against an underdog.
You gotta get rid of that ego, man. The ego
Yeah.
shows. That's ego. That's
And listen, it'll be
thinking
his.
that you're smarter than somebody else.
I think he does, and I think it'll be a good strength of his. But it can also, like I said, that about walking that line between overconfidence and being humble. And Ben Johnson's going to have to be figuring that out throughout his entire career here.
And he's gonna be learning, like you said. You got to be patient with Ben Johnson too.
So we got the Bills in Kansas City. That's the late game.
You want to throw a score at that game, Washington, Philly, for the gamblers? Give us a score.
Really,
Give us this. What's the spread? Tell me if they cover the spread. At least give me that.
Dude, I stopped betting because I always lose.
That's why most people stop.
It's like I don't have money to just throw away on being stupid. I haven't even looked at spreads in weeks. Honestly,
That's why I don't make bets more than like $8, bro.
I got down like a little bit of a rabbit hole. So I mean, I didn't want to deal with it. But do you have it on the ready there, bud? Since you brought it up.
I do. It is on the Washington Philly game. It's 6.5. Obviously, in Phillies.
Yeah, I see -6, 6.5 to 6. I see -6 right now for Philly. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance Philly covers that, wins by at least a touchdown. I can see it being like 24-17, or 24-20. It's possible. I mean, I don't know.
I think I'd bet Washington to cover, man. I'm gonna be honest. I'd take Washington to cover. I like the Eagles winning the football game, but I'm taking Washington to cover 6.5 for sure.
Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for
hanging.
All right.
Listen, man, I got the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. I got the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. So yeah, I'll be rooting again, just like I'll be rooting for Jaden. I'm rooting for the Commanders. I'm rooting for the Bills. I'm picking the Eagles. I'm picking the Chiefs. I'm not betting against the Chiefs at home in an AFC Championship game. I'm just not until they show me different. They continue to show us who they are, and they're the team that wins these games.
How ridiculous would it be if Patrick Mahomes makes it to 4 Super Bowls and only plays 2 teams?
Yeah, 2 times against Philly, 2 times against San Fran,
Was it
right?
2 times against?
No, he played
Philly?
San Fran once. He only played San Fran once, right? No, they played San Fran twice.
No, Garoppolo lost one and Purdy lost one.
And they played the Bucks too. That would be 5 Super Bowls they've been to, bro. Is it? Didn't they play? They played the Bucks in a Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, they didn't play Philly. Philly played who did Philly play in the AFC? Not Cincinnati. Cincinnati played the Rams.
No, Philly played Kansas City.
Chiefs?
Yeah,
so 5 Super Bowls? Is it 5?
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. It's late.
I think it is, dude.
Yeah, no, they definitely beat the Niners.
No. It's 4. It's 4 because we're saying if they make it to another. So sorry, if they make it to
5.
A 5th
it
Super
will be
Bowl,
5. Yes,
they make it to a 5th.
They've been to 4.
They would have played the Eagles and Niners both twice. If they make it to, that's just ridiculous, man.
Well, I mean, it shows you that these teams.
Nobody wants to see that.
It shows you, though, that these teams that figure it out, they stay on top. They keep getting back. That's where you want the Bears to end up. Yeah, yes. But I mean, yeah, who do you got in this game, Brandon?
I like the Bills, man.
To win, you're like just with your head, not with your heart.
Yeah, I like the Bills. I think this year, like I didn't think for a minute that the Chiefs were going to win the game against the Bills this season. I would have
in the regular season.
Yeah.
Okay.
When the Bills beat the Chiefs to hand them one of their 2 losses.
Yeah, they beat them.
I felt confident that the Bills were going to run the Chiefs over. And I just think I think the Bills this year I think the Bills are a better football team. Like roster wise, I think they're a better football team.
I don't know, man. All right, T. Thank you for joining us, man. You have a good night. Yeah. Good luck to your Lions. But go Bears.
Good night, T. Thanks for hanging out, man. Thanks for the chat. Yeah, I don't know. How'd you feel about that game when the regular season game was approaching? Who did you think was going to win that football game?
I thought it was a toss up, man. To be quite honest, I thought either team could have won, and that showed throughout the game. I mean, it's not like the Chiefs were out of it at any point. That was a close game. That was a tight game, and that was in Buffalo. This game's in Kansas City, so that makes it a little different to me. Again, you just don't bet against the Chiefs at home in an AFC Championship game. That's dumb. To me, it just doesn't. I can't. Again, I understand why everybody thinks so. Josh Allen has been incredible all season. This Bills team has performed in moments where it's needed to, and it's gotten to a point that it hasn't gotten to in the past. So, like, you want to see them get over that hump, and I want to see it too. I just don't believe that's what's going to happen based on what I know about these two teams.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't
Patrick
usually
Mahomes doesn't lose these games.
But I don't usually do that. I didn't bet against Brady, man. I don't like betting against Mahomes. But I also feel like Josh Allen is right there, man. I feel like I continue to say to myself and other people, like, you can't bet against Mahomes, but like, there's got to be a point where Josh Allen becomes that guy, right? I think Josh Allen, man,
Josh
like,
Allen is that guy.
just
Josh
as
Allen
damn
is that
good
guy.
as Patrick Mahomes, and he's
He
going to start
is.
winning rings because of it. You got to believe that, like, and
Guys,
there's going to be a point where the Chiefs start to make the playoffs and not win every Super Bowl because they will hit a decline as well. You know what I
but
mean?
Brandon, look at the history of the NFL. I mean, it's usually that one guy that's kind of kicking ass and continues to win, and there's the other guy that always comes up short. That is the kind of the way it played. It was Brady and Manning, and I mean Manning ended up getting his. So I mean, good
Yeah.
for him, you know. But like eventually it happens. But it's like in those head-to-head matchups, you know, that it's not just about the quarterback; it's the team. And I think
But if you're looking
the
at,
Chiefs have a
but
better
if you're looking
coach.
at,
And I think the Chiefs have a better defense.
if you're looking at history, though, man, no team in the NFL has ever three-peated. So
Mm-hmm.
your
Yeah.
the odds are not in your favor as a betting man for the Chiefs to win a Super Bowl,
But the
as far as
motivation is
history,
there.
as far as history is concerned.
But the motivation is there. How often do Super Bowl winning the previous year's Super Bowl winning team have this much motivation to repeat? You're going to do something that no team's done. You're going to live on forever in NFL history if you do this. And I mean, like, and you'll just cement that. It's again, it could go either way. This is another toss-up game. I will just bet on the Chiefs at home until they show me otherwise. That's just where I'm at. So, and I'm not rooting for the Chiefs. I'm just not. But I just think they win.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's rooting for the Chiefs that's outside of Kansas City.
That's Kansas City fans, yeah. But
Well,
we'll see.
I think the spread on that one's much less. It's like a point and a half.
Yeah, it's in the 1.5.
One and a
Yeah,
half.
right. Yeah. All right, man. Well, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be some good football this Sunday, so we're excited for that. We're excited to bring you guys more content. We'll see you again on Monday for our Hollis Hall hangover. Bear down, Frank Kuros. Thank you for joining
Bear
us.
down, Frank.
We appreciate you. So yeah, another day, another one in the books, Brandon. Good job tonight. This has been the bare minimum. Anything else you want to get out there?
No, man, I'm excited for the next week or two to see all the name drops, right?
Yeah, man.
Start
The
to
Bears
see
coaching
this come
staff.
together. They
Yeah,
don't
the
waste
Bears.
time on this, guys. Once you
No.
figure out who's running it, you don't waste time on this. You hit the ground
Because
running.
these guys are going to get snatched up by other. There's still coaching jobs open. Like people are trying to build staffs right now. You have to get out there.
And you want to start. You know, you might not dive into the football stuff, guys, a week removed from last season, but Ben Johnson wants to start to establish personal relationships with these people as well. There are going to be guys he hires because of their resumes. There are going to be guys that Ben Johnson hires strictly because of what they've done in the NFL. He doesn't know them on a personal level. That's the first thing he's going to take care of, and you got to do that early. These guys need to know each other, and it's like going into camp.
And you got to do that early because other teams are looking at those same guys because of their resume. And there's a lot of competition for those guys. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, like you said. We'll be here for you to give you the content. Check us out, 4-Star Chicago Sports. We'll be putting out some shorts for you. And check us out on
Chicago Sports Podcast too, guys.
Yeah, check us out on CSP as well. We appreciate everybody. Have a great night. Y'all have been awesome.
Thanks, guys. Bear down.